then to the stage 12, Lutz Ardiden, 195 kilometres for the riders. And after the rest day in Lourdes, the 169 riders had to tackle one of the toughest stages in the Tour. 195 kilometres from Lourdes to Lutz Ardiden. An early breakaway then, after some 32 kilometres had been covered. We went up the climb of the Côte de Murazon, and this man we're looking at now, Torres, broke away. He had some help at the time. He went over the top of the climb with Veronk, Camargo and Herb, went down the other side. Caspuris, Bedonk and Cabello came up to him. He dropped them, went away on his own, and the last time check we had, he had got a lead of 3 minutes and 30 seconds at the 51st kilometre in the race. So he went away after 32 kilometres, and at 51 kilometres his lead then up to 3 minutes and 30 seconds. Lying ahead of the riders today, there are 4 massive mountains, all in the last 60 kilometres. That's some 60 miles, including the famous Col de Tourmalet, 2,115 metres above sea level. So the specialist climbers are going to be in the element today, looking for every opportunity to put the pressure on race leader Miguel Indurain. This man then on his own at the front and is being chased down left, right and centre by various other attackers, but so far nobody's really made much of an inroad on that one, and perhaps they're all saving themselves for the big mountains yet to come. Vermeer, this is the last man on general classification, by the way, overall in the position as we went into the rest day, and Vermeer lying 1 hour, 34 minutes and 53 seconds behind Indurain, the 173rd rider on the finish sheet when we went into the rest day. But the 4 riders that have abandoned now, amongst those non-starters, was Claudio Chiappucci. Great disappointment. He has an enormous number of fans, and Claudio Chiappucci now out of the race. He was sick on the climb up to Lourdes Hautecamp, and in fact the L'Equipe newspaper had actually elements, and they had no sort of soft feelings over here in France. They were put pictures of enormous suffering and things that perhaps would be a bit squeamish to people back home, and as Chiappucci was sick, they actually got the photograph, it all coming out of his mouth and bouncing on the floor from a cameraman just behind him. Poor Chiappucci was absolutely on his knees. He wanted to retire at the bottom of the climb up the Lourdes Hautecamp climb, the 13-kilometre climb, but his teammates got behind him and they all pushed him up the climb or encouraged him to stay on his bike, but he was so weak from being sick. He'd been drinking lots of liquid, he hadn't eaten very much, he got some stomach problems, and woof, up it all came. And the climb up the top then, he had his teammates for help and the encouragement of the crowd, but he came in way off the back. Poor Chiappucci, I don't think he's ever been so badly placed. In fact, he said later on he was actually overtaken by all the sprinters, and that really is something, because the sprinters usually come in well off the back. So of the Carrera team that went up the top with him then, trying hard to look after Chiappucci, with Mario Chiesa, Mario Mantovan, Marco Artunghi and Remo Rossi and Alessandro Bertolini. I give you their names because they sacrificed their chances in the tours. We're looking now at the Banesto team chasing after the lone breakaway and the one rider wedged in between. They sacrificed their chances, the career riders did, to get their team captain Claudio Chiappucci to the finish, and they came in 23 minutes and 57 seconds down and were in danger of being actually eliminated, but they got inside the time limit, and so Chiappucci could have lived for another day. But despite all the treatment yesterday, it decided, or his doctors decided, that he would not start this morning, and so disappointment to the Devils fans that he's out of the race. So that is something that I'm talking to my co-commentator Stephen Roche about later on, but Stephen went down to the start this morning to talk to some of the riders. We'd come on air just after 12 o'clock, and with the course as it is, you have to get ahead of the race. I've gone ahead. Stephen's going to fight his way through now to come and join me in the commentary point. He's been down talking to the riders this morning, but all the side roads are blocked. It's very difficult to cut across country, and you have to get yourself just ahead of the race and then hammer like hell. But this morning, coming up all the climbs, there were masses of spectators walking their way up, something like about 4 hours before the race was due to come through. They were on foot, climbing up these big long climbs. A lot of people on their bicycles riding up on their bikes up to their vantage points, and alongside all the places where you could park a car or a camper van had been taken virtually the day before. People have been out here getting ready for these big climbs. It's the place you can best see the giants in action is on the big mountain, because they come up in penny numbers all strung out, and you can watch at the front the battle for the yellow jersey. So here, Banesto trying to just hold the little gap here for a man on his own at the moment. Torres there, and you can see he's got to 78 kilometres at Chiap Gode on this, the 12th stage of the race. race, and the total stage today covering some 200 and tell me page and get it right for you, 195 kilometres. And so this one rider from Festina, they're having quite a good tour actually, Festina, because on the stage into Lourdes Haut-de-Cam, they got that victory of Luc Leblanc. He went over the line in first place, and Richard Virenque went over the line in fourth spot. So the good day then as far as Festina was concerned. In fact, their next place man, Pasqualino, was down in 18th place. So they're all smiles then to get three men in the top 20 on a day of decimation when many of the top favourites failed to stay up to expectations. I'll give you a rundown on those finished results on that stage into Haut-de-Cam in case you didn't get it in your national newspaper while watching Torres here in action. We'll go through the top 10 first of all on that stage. First of all, Leblanc, then Indurain, Pantani, who started the attack at the bottom of the mountain. Virenque was in fourth. De La Cuevas, here's a likely tip for the top. He was in fifth spot. Pavel Tonkov in sixth. And hovering there very interestingly was Peter Ugromov. He went over in seventh spot, 1 minute 26 seconds down. Now, Ugromov was the man who in the Giro d'Italia last year frightened Indurain by getting into second place, and he attacked him constantly toward the back end of the race. Now, Ugromov rode the Tour of Italy this year. I'll have to look in my books for you, but he was well down, probably 30th or something. He didn't seem to be firing on all cylinders, and I wonder if he'd blown himself up in last year's Tour of Italy, because sometimes riders can stretch themselves too much and not recover. But Ugromov, hovering there, dropped into seventh place, just 1 minute 26 seconds behind Leblanc, the victor on the day. Enrico Zaino was in eighth spot for the Gavis team. Ninth was Roberto Conti for Lampre, and Lodino Cubino was in 10th spot, 150 down. In fact, Cubino tried, if you saw our coverage on Eurosport, he tried to break away at the bottom of the climb, got so far up towards Pantini, blew a gasket, got overtaken, finished 1 minute 50 seconds back on the stage. The biggest disaster, though, of course, was Tony Rominger, coming in 2 minutes 21 seconds down Leblanc. He lost 2 minutes and 19 seconds, in fact, to Indurain on that stage. He had got a bad stomach, but he did announce to the press that he had an off day the first time in 4 years. Now you look at these riders here, and this little chap out in front at the moment, just think about it. They've been racing now for, what, 2,138 kilometres in all, and that's 1,335 miles. They've done that non-stop, and about 7 minutes and 50 seconds, so he's beginning to accelerate away from the main group, but on these big climbs, then one man on his own has got a lot of work to do. So that's an enormous lead at the moment as far as he is concerned. He's taken the first sprint we had, by the way. I'll just whip that up for you before we go back to the general classification. And Terry Marie, they're flashing up the riders' names for you, so you can pick out your favourites yourself. But I'll just go back on my computer now and have a little look at the sprint at Bertin. That's at Bertren at 67.5 kilometres. Torres, as we would expect, took that one because he was way off down the road on his own. And just behind him, Marie, who we'll be looking at just then, was on his little group chasing after him at 7 minutes. So we'll get those names for you just a moment. Polly is in there. Well, he's a big fella. I don't think he's going to like the mountain, so he's another chap who's deciding, let's get ahead and make a bit of a lead before we hit the mountains. All the big blokes usually try and do that anyway. But at that sprint then, Marie and Polly, who are now trying to chase down our breakaway, they went in the order across the line in second and third place. So that sprint at Bertren, 67.7 kilometres of the race and 137 kilometres to go. And so the sprint, the next one after that, let's have a look at what's going on now. And the three riders have got to Intercales. So at 70 kilometres, they're going to now find that with 7 minutes advance from Marie, and 7:30 back to Bunch that was, and Marco Vermey is somewhat caught now, and in fact no, he's still there, and the peloton 7:50, so it's extending all the time, as one might expect on this stage. When they've got the mountains ahead, the specialist climbers will wait to see, I think, what Indurain is going to do. It's a lonely ride as far as this fellow is concerned. It's a bit of a flattened U-shaped turn on its side. They started this morning in Lourdes and headed out completely in an easterly direction to begin with, and after they got to about 40 kilometres into the east, then they started to turn round south for a short way and then turn and came back in again. So it's like a flattened U, looking at it going east, a bit south, and then coming back in towards the west. So that's the route they've got to go today, and the big climb at the finish up Lutz Ardennes, which awaits them, and where the spectators have been gathering since yesterday, is going to be 13.4 kilometres of climbing up to 1,715 metres above sea level. They hit the bottom of the valley after dropping off the Col de Tourmalet at 720 metres. So they got 1,000 metres of climbing, 3,000 feet in some 13 kilometres. So that's going to be about 10 miles of climbing, and they've got to do 3,000 feet in 10 miles. It twists up and up and up, and so this bloke we're desperately hanging on, hoping that he can probably do some good and stay out there till then. But I doubt that one. The pressure's going to come on, and this is Marie just up in front of Polly. That was Polly, who had a lone break, what was it, 3 days ago now, and got hauled in after he'd been out there an awful long time. He's trying yet again a suicidal mission, but being a big tall bloke, he knows that when it gets to the big climbs, he's going to be absolutely stuffed, and he might as well throw down the gauntlet now and hope that he can get there and hang on for grim death as this little group goes past him. Thierry Marie, another man who I don't think would say that he's a particularly good climber, is doing exactly the same thing, but he's got enormous guts, Marie. In fact, both these two riders are capable of riding a long, long way, right about 99% of effort, and opening up gaps as well. So there's a good move as far as they're concerned, but Torres is still some 7 minutes down the road as far as they're concerned. The quick chart that comes up on the right-hand side, the yellow is the position overall on general classification, and the green one shows them in the points position as well. You can see by the shape of the bunch at the moment, they're not too worried about the breakaways, because it's fairly compact. Just the arrowhead with the Banestos stringing out on the front, as expected, because the yellow jersey is on the shoulders of Miguel Indurain. So there they are, nice little group of riders with breakaway then. Torres still in the lead, about 7 minutes and a half up on this main group. The Banesto train going, I suppose, at half speed at the moment, there with Miguel Indurain in the yellow jersey, just waiting to see if the leading group might come together. Hard work as far as Polly and Marie are concerned to catch up with our leader, Torres, who went away after some 32 kilometres being covered up the little Côte de Morozon. The couple of climbs, de Klerk's been getting himself some extra points in the King of the Mountains competition, with the polka dot jersey, but that particular section of the competition has been narrowed down somewhat, and today, with these massive points at stake, de Klerk's going to have to work hard to hang on to. So as we're looking down that main field there, if you can spot the polka dot jersey, I can't, they're all the same from here, but if you can spot it, then it's Peter de Klerk at the moment. But he has just 61 points. Well, he collected another 10 down the road, so I better correct that. He had some 71, and he collected, what, another 4 points. So he's got a best part of about 75 points at the moment. But Leblanc, yesterday, through winning that final stage up that pumping great hill, has got 46 points, and today, as they go across these climbs, they've got 2 all-category climbs with 40 points to the victor on each of the climbs, and it goes down to 15th place, and 2 first-category climbs where there are 30 points for each. So you're looking at the moment at 140 points, which could be collected by the winners. Say Torres just stayed out over all those last climbs, he can suddenly collect 140 points in the King of the Mountains competition and leapfrog right over the top of Peter de Klerk. But somehow, I don't think that Mr. Torres is going to hang on to it that far, but you never know. You never know with these chaps out there. He's no great threat on the general classification. He's 23 minutes and 12 seconds down on Miguel Indurain, so that puts him away off the chance of taking the yellow jersey, and certainly the Banestos will be quite happy to let him stay out there at the moment, because they haven't got to chase too hard. There's nobody that's a very great threat as far as they're concerned on the general classification. If you want to know more about the Brits, certainly I'm sure that all newspapers back in England, and forgive me all you people listening to the commentary in English that are not British supporters of the sport, because I know Eurosport reaching now some 50-odd million homes, English language is picked up in hotels and houses and what have you, all across restaurants and goodies, right across Europe at the moment. And please forgive me if I occasionally refer to the Brits with some interest, because I know a lot of people back home want to know what they're doing. Sean Yates at the moment, 55th overall, 22 minutes and 26 seconds down. The Motorola rider obviously didn't like that last climb. They went up on the day before the rest day, has now dropped out of the top 10, not to be unexpected. And of course Chris Boardman, who was having great difficulty in recovering from the efforts, has now retired. He climbed off on that stage before the rest day at the feeding station. And we're sorry to see you go. Chris, you're back home listening to this. You gave us all something to talk about, and we're very, very pleased that we had 2 yellow jerseys, and particularly with your thundering great prologue time trial. And by the way, I've seen the course for the World Time Trial Championship in Sicily, and it really is a dogleg job. It zigzags all over the place, and it goes back on itself and twists and turns, and I don't think I've seen anything like it in a time trial before. It certainly is one of your straight out big gear jobs. There's going to be a lot of jumping out the saddle and zipping around in that one before they get out of the town. It's a very, very unusual course. I'll talk about it later on the actual shape of the thing, but it is not a particularly what I call a simplistic time trial course. There's going to be a lot of changing gear, get out of the saddle, accelerating, sitting down, braking, coming out again, and it'll need, I'm quite sure, a tremendous amount of research by the riders to go around. I understand that Graham O'Brien has already been around the course, and he probably is going to be very happy that they haven't to let him ride on his bike with his handlebars up against his chest, because I'm sure in that position he'd have great difficulty. As we're looking now at the leading rider approaching the 85 kilometre point, I'm sure they have great difficulty in that unusual position to take the bends flat out and accelerate out. And so perhaps in some respects, with O'Brien now having to learn to use a position a bit like Chris Boardman, then it'll probably help him in this particular instance, and we may have much more a straight head-to-head. But I don't know that Indurain at all would like the course if he's going to ride it. We don't know yet what are his ambitions in the World Championships. I think he's always hoping to get the gold medal. Not got there yet in the Worlds on the road, but perhaps he might save all his strength for that one. But Berzin has already said he certainly is. Watching Thierry Marie here and Polly chase down our leader, Berzin has already said that he is going to ride the time trial, and he's a little rider who's very chunky and very swift, and can certainly handle his bike, and of course will have the opportunity of spending a lot of time down there training on the course, because his team is Gubis, it is Italian, and they would look for him to, I'm quite sure, to have a good day down there and go for a medal, and probably a gold one at that. So I think he could certainly be a bit of a threat as far as the gold medal is concerned. But that is some way away. That's around about 3 weeks actually to it, so you can understand now why Chris Boardman climbed off his bike, because he's got to train and get himself ready, and to probably get this out of his system, because it has been a very, very hard tour indeed. The heat making it very, very difficult for these riders to recover. They get back into their hotels at night absolutely dehydrated, and so it's not surprising that Chris had never raced as far in his life before, never lasted as many stages, and certainly never ridden some stage distances that we did. So to Chris Boardman, now resting at home, we wish you a happy recovery from your efforts, and to your wife Sally, little George, Edwin and Harriet, I hope that now Dad's come back home, you can have say hello to him before he sets off on his special training to try and win the gold medal for Gann and Great Britain. Well, the field at the moment still ambling along. I shouldn't say that, because they're probably travelling around about 23 miles an hour, and the speed at which this race has been enacted so far is absolutely remarkable. The 1,335 kilometres that we've covered, they have in fact averaged so far 41.295 kilometres, and that is 25.8 miles per hour, so a sniff under 26 miles per hour for the 1,335 miles they've raced so far since we set off from Lille on Saturday week with that short distance prologue time trial. Still Torres here, 61st overall, 23 minutes and 12 seconds, pressing on with his war of attrition out the front. I'm sure he's doing as much harm to himself as he is to the people behind him, but we wish him the best of luck. This is a sort of lone break that people like to see, particularly on a day like today when some of the chaps might have sat in there and say, hey, don't let's do too much until we get to the first big climb of the day, which is the Col de Père de Soude, and that comes after 96 kilometres of racing have been covered. So he's heading toward that one now, and we've been through the sprint at Bertrand. There's one at Estenos, and the sprints are out of the way. Abdul Jafarov didn't feature any points then on those first two sprints we had, and there's confirmation. It's back 7:50 to the main field, and just 5:30 to these two. I can't see what's happened to Vermeer, the Dutch rider for the Chazal team, so it looks like he's been absorbed and swallowed up. So the gap still quite comfortable, nice little cushion here, but the two riders have not yet got their chase man in sight. Beautiful castle. This is a nice part of the world. We're down the flattish part right now. The course went out of Lourdes on some fairly flat territory, just slightly undulating, and then as you turn back in towards the Pyrenees, you can see the looming mountains ahead, the crags with the snow still tucked in the valleys, and the riders then can see what they're aiming at, and the field will begin to no doubt have the butterflies in their stomachs as they see the big mountains ahead, and the spectators gathered, as I remember Bill Nixon saying many years ago, like Indians there with their bows and arrows looking down, waiting for the riders to arrive. The spectators, the foot soldiers, I saw them coming up this morning. I call them foot soldiers because they're the spectators who have to leave their cars at the bottom, and they put their haversacks on their backs, and you see the French bread rolls, baguettes across the back of their haversacks and so on, and they're carrying up their great big water bottles full of water, just like they're going on a route march somewhere, and they've got an awful long way to climb. So as Castrol, the team manager, comes up to have a word with Thierry Marie, no stranger when it comes. He's 4:30 now. No stranger when it comes to chasing for a long break, Thierry Marie, because he has the second largest stage breakaway, 234 kilometres, when he won the stage into Le Havre way back in, I think it was either 90 or 91. So that's 150 miles that Marie did on his own to win the stage, and that went down the record book as the second longest one. So Marie, no stranger to driving hard, and Polly is exactly the same. So we've got two good chasers now. They're just 5:30 down on Young Torres, and the main group still about 7 minutes plus in arrears. Still a long way to go as far as they're concerned, with the mountains ahead of them, and I think that one or two of the top mountain climbers just enjoying being towed along right now, whilst Torres is on his own in the front. Well, we're going to take a short break, stay with Eurosport and see more action in just a couple of minutes. Baron comes top of that one, with her behind him and Torres behind him. So the road now is beginning to climb somewhat, and that's going to start hurting his legs. The gap coming down all the way for this rider here on the front. There, the Côte de Mauzan. Now this is the one where the rider we're looking at now, Torres took off at that climb. He took off at 32 kilometres. Baron went over first, Camargo was second, Herb third, then de Klerk, and then Torres went over behind them. And it's at that point, after 32 kilometres, that he set off and opened up a gap, which the last we had was well over 7 minutes. Although these two chasers now are around about 3.5 minutes down on him. It's coming all the way through, and they might catch him after a while. So Torres, the man leading from the Festina team, and these big field behind, probably quite happy now. They're having a check on our watches for the distance they've covered so far, because we now came up towards about 20 to 1 over here, and that'll be 12, 20 on the sheet. Yes, we might be somewhere around about the speed sprint at Estanos, and they've probably got about 130 kilometres all there to go. So a long way yet, and then we've got the climb up the Col de Peyresourde is the first one. So still one man in the lead, two chasing, and the main bunch being led by Benesto. Well, I'm joined in the commentary point by Stephen Rhodes, who's fought his way through the spectators who are milling all over the roads between here and the start. And first of all, Stephen, we know what the position is here. We've got Torres in the lead by about 3.5 minutes between him and Polly and Maria chasing after him, and about 7 minutes back to the bunch here, who are rolling along quite nicely. And this is the crazy act of the day so far, but I think it's taken the pressure off some of the people. But first of all, can we talk about Claudio Chiappucci? I mentioned to one of the listeners that Claudio didn't start today, and I'm sure you've had an opportunity, because you're staying in the Carrera Hotel, to have spoken to him. Just how is he?
Well, actually, that's the main reason why I was late this morning, because I wanted to just get the genuine word from the horse's mouth, like to put it that way, because everybody says Chiappucci this and Rominger that and Escuevas that. I've been to the three camps this morning. I've been with Claudio Chiappucci all day yesterday, on this morning with Rominger also, and this morning I spoke to the people who are looking after the Escuevas, and unfortunately, going back to the Escuevas, who is possibly the least Lisa's the problem. He has a very, very bad angina, and he has he's in the race this morning, of course, but he's yesterday didn't even go out on his bike because he was in bed all day with a fever.
Yeah.
So it's very, very bad. And then, but like I say, he's not the worst off. Then there was Tony Rominger stayed in my hotel last night also, who had a press conference yesterday, and he was saying that he was very disappointed, of course, with his first day in the mountains, but he said he couldn't tell how his form was going to be, but he had a sickness in his stomach that he just came on him, that before the start he had diarrhea, and of course everybody knows that when you have diarrhea you empty yourself, so you have no force. So unfortunately it was a bad day for Tony on the first day, but he was hoping for a better day this morning. And this morning all of a sudden I spoke to him again, and actually last night we were speaking after dinner, and his wife came down, so of course everybody knows when Tony's wife comes down everything goes well for Tony, because he loves having his wife beside him. He's very, very sentimental, and when his wife comes down, he kind of sent out an SOS for her after the finish the other day, because normally she wasn't planned to come down until the end, because he had a baby in about 2 months ago, so she's not the best, of course.
She had the baby.
She had a baby, yeah. She had a baby.
She had something to do with it.
Yeah, she had a baby, so she was staying at home, of course, to look after the baby for as long as possible. And after Tommy's performance the other day in the mountains, he sent out an SMS, says, Bridget, come, Bridget, come, I need you. So Bridget came down, drove down from Monte Carlo the other day all through the night, and was there yesterday morning for the rest day. So they spent the rest day together. He went out and did 30 kilometers only on his bike, which is nothing compared to what Tony would normally do. Normally Tony would do 80 to 100 kilometers
on a rest day,
and really dig into it to get up a good sweat and to simulate an actual stage. But Tony yesterday felt he was weak, so he didn't want to burn up any energy, hoping that this morning he would be okay. And this morning I spoke to him again, and as I was speaking to him, Stephen, excuse me, I got to go to the toilet. And it wasn't for to brush his teeth or to wash his face. It was because the diarrhea was still there. So unfortunately Tony is in a bad way today also, and also with all these climbs today with a Bingy long stage, it's going to be very difficult for Tony. I think Tony will do something, or will try and do something today, because he knows that there's not very many mountain stages like today, so he must do something. But everyone knows once again that when you have stomach problems, you can never be at the best at this level. Then there's Claudio Cappucci, of course. Claudio had a very bad day the other day. He has some kind of a stomach bug. We all felt that it was possibly because the fact that he drank too much cold liquid after the very hot day the other day. But unfortunately now it's come down to he has some kind of a bug that he doesn't keep anything down. He throws up everything he eats, everything he drinks. So he has the other night after the stage, he had 39 degrees temperature. So he had a fever, very heavy fever. So yesterday, like I've seen Cappucci being very sick before, and always does what he feels like doing, and never listens to a doctor, and he's always right the next day. Where this is the first time I've seen Cappucci listening to a doctor and actually staying in bed all day yesterday. He didn't even move out of his bed for dinner or for breakfast. He didn't eat a thing hardly. The doctor was trying to give him like a perfusion, instead a drip. A drip, and
you've lived too long over here.
So on a drip, trying to give him some kind of liquid food, like, but because he couldn't keep down on his solid food. So thinking that today might be okay. So I saw him yesterday, and he was a bit down, of course, but he still had hope that today everything was going to be okay, because he was doing everything right. He was listening to the doctor. So, but this morning I went to see him in the room early on, and he seemed to be a little bit kind of frustrated because he felt he wasn't great. So he thought, well, before getting on the road, he would go out and ride his bike. So off he went and rode for 10 minutes and came back in. He says, Stephen, it's off. There's no way I can continue. And I feel myself it was a very, very hard decision for himself to take. And I think it's a very courageous decision, because he could have done what other riders have done before him and climbed off at a feeding station, or climbed off on the road and getting the photographs and being a hero. But Claudio reckoned there's no point in starting the stage. He was only going to ride half the stage, so he preferred to stay in bed. So he was, of course, very, very much broken up by it, because it was a very big decision that he had to make. He's never, in any stage race he's ever ridden, he's never, ever stopped a stage race. Never, ever abandoned because of sickness or because he was dropped. He always finished, whether he won it or whether he finished last, he always finished it. So it's the first tour in a 10-year career until now that he's actually stopped a stage race. And what an unfortunate stage race that has to be in the Tour de France, the tour that made Cappucci 4 years ago. Now he had to stop. So, of course, the joke was, like, we all know that Capucci is called El Diablo, the devil. Whereas we're saying that the good Lord didn't appreciate Capucci coming into Lourdes with a hat written all over the devil, so he's punished him for it. So that made him smile a little bit, but I just left him about an hour ago in the hotel, and he was filling himself up a little bit. But, of course, every journalist wants to get a photograph, every journalist wants to know why and what and how and where he's going to next. So, unfortunately, he's very down, but his last interview he did before I left him, he said, but it's only the tour. The season's not finished, so I just wish him the best of luck now, and I hope he will come back now and do a really good World Championship in Italy, and possibly, actually talking to him last night, there could be good news for the Tour of Britain, because with him being out of this, he said, well, Stephen, which race is there left? And I said, well, there is a Tour of Britain. I've never ridden it, but yeah, when is it on? Maybe, yeah, you never know. So you never know, maybe in Britain we might see Capucci riding in the Kellogg's Tour in August.
Well, that would be good news for the British supporters, Stephen, because I know that often people, when I'm talking about the sport, even non-cyclists, they know Capucci. He's built such a reputation in the sport as a gutsy character, never say die, always prepared to attack, and the British like a bloke like that, and non-cyclists have taken him out, and he's got that impish little grin too, like every mother loves him. He's 30-something years of age.
Well, he showed once again today the character that he has. He hasn't only got it on the bike. He is an intelligent rider, and to make the decision, like we always say, he's a courageous rider, a lot of character and everything else, but anybody, when you're a good cyclist, you can show courage, but the courage is a class. Whereas this morning, the decision that Capucci takes is courage, and it's the courage that brings him to winning races, the courage that brings him to doing long breaks of 180 kilometers like Sestriere a few years ago, and so Capucci is well known for this, and I feel that he's a fighter, and he will be back before the end of the year.
Well, let's hope he rides in Great Britain. We look forward to seeing him over there in the Kellogg's Pro Tour. I was speaking to Michael Bennett and Pat McQuaid from Sport for Television yesterday. They were going around signing riders up for the Kellogg's Pro Tour, and they say it is going to be the best field yet, as Marie now starts to pull away from Polly. He's been doing all the work. Polly hasn't done much work recently, so it's not surprising now, I think, that Marie's decided he might as well go off on his own. The gap last we had was just some 3.5 minutes between himself and Torres, and therefore with these riders here, some 7 minutes up on the main field. Their own little private battle at the moment, but Polly, of course, being a big fella, chance in hell has he on these climbs.
Well, Polly is the biggest man in the group. He is 1.94 m, so that's about 6'3", 6'4" maybe. Yeah. He is the biggest man in the bunch, so it's by no means not normal that he gets dropped on these hills. Thierry Marey is by no means a climber, but he's a very good rider, and you can see by his build, he's about 5'9", about my build, and a very, very strong rider. Not a pure climber, but a rider that can get over the hills. This is not actually a first category climb or whatever. It's a normal climb, but
called the Perisur.
Yeah, called a Perisur, yes, but it's not like like a North category. Like it's only it's first category, yeah. In our chart. It's a long hill, but it's not like the Tourmalet, or it's not like the Luzard de Den. It's a long hill, but it's not a hill he's going to go over like an ice climber. I mean, he's not going to go over in a 41-23. Like the Perisur is going to go over it like in a 19-20 maybe. So it's not as you can see, anyone that understands the system of the gears, it's a 41 chainring in the front and a 19-20 in the back. Whereas the Tourmalet, you'll be using a 41 ring in the front and a 23 in the back. So you can make it out for yourself what many inches or many meters that would be in one revolution of the pedal. But Thierry Marey is a good all-rounder, but not an A climber to get over the big climbs, but he can get over the climbs like the Perisur.
So the main field here, compact with the yellow jersey there, Miguel Indurain, who came into today's stage some 4 minutes and 47 seconds ahead of Tony Rominger. De Las Cuevas in third spot, 5 minutes and 36 seconds behind. Pietro Ugrimov, 8 minutes 32 behind in fourth spot. Ugrimov, second in the Tour of Italy last year, had begun to come good. He climbed up the Haut-de-Cam 2 days ago in fine style, so he could be a threat in the big mountains. Luc Leblanc is 5th at 8:35. Bjorn Ries is 6th at 8:59. Bortolami is 7th at 9:14. Olano 8th at 9 minutes and 20 seconds. Thomas Davey 9th at 9:46. And Enrico Zaina for the Gris team is in 10th spot, 11 minutes and 15 seconds down. And two young riders there, Pulnikov in 11th spot, 11:30. And then we've got Tonkov back in 12th spot, 12 minutes 15 seconds down. Thierry Marey is lying 15th over overall, 12:52, so he's quite a bit of a threat, not to climb up alongside Indurain and Rominger as such, but certainly to move himself up into the top 10 if he keeps this one up. And his fellow Torres we're looking at way down on general classification in 61st place, 23 minutes and 12 seconds in arrears. I was saying earlier on, Stephen, that Claudio obviously has some stomach problems, but when we see Bunyo back on general classification, 19 minutes and 6 seconds down in 40th place at the moment, and when we look back down and find that Rooks was a good climber back in 24 minutes 33 seconds down, and we've got people like Tunisia also struggling way back, and there seems to be a whole need now. I mean, you retired last year, Fignon retired last year, a lot of the older riders that were dominating the scene, forget Indurain because he's a man apart at the moment, Rominger, well, he's 33 or 34, he's about riding again next year, but the new blood must start to come through now, mustn't it? Because people, those 30-year-olds, seem to have had a long time at the top, and then not many youngsters coming through, but they've got to come through now, and I don't know who's going to be. You do as being a likely character to do well in the future.
It is. It's in the last 2 or 3 years, the lads from my generation are disappearing, and the next year or 2 years there'll be nobody left of my generation, and it's quite unfortunate because, well, it's not unfortunate. It's unfortunate that our generation has gone or going, but the young riders today are kind of here today and gone tomorrow. Whereas the likes of the Kellys, the Roaches, the Fignons, the Muddays, we always they were there for a long time.
Well, we're going to look in this tour for some people to challenge Miguel Indurain, but at the moment he's in the main pack as they head towards the first of the big climbs of the day.
Taiki's often there.
Here we are. This is Vermeer, who we haven't seen anything of for a long, long time. This is the fellow who's last overall in general classification. He shot away in a lone pursuit of our breakaways, and now he's really struggling. He's lying last on GC, and the poor lad is going to get himself really caught now. And of course, what often happens when you've been out there so long as this, they come steaming past you, and you've got to grab a wheel and hang on for grim death. So we give you our many thanks for activating the stage, young man. As Aronk, as ever, is danging around. This
here we have a attack from behind. He has Cordes in front, so but still it's a very good move from behind. We can get across this group now, but after using it, sticking into a big gear, it doesn't look a very heavy guy. He's a very, very slim guy.
Rodriguez after him now. He did a good ride the other day. Rodriguez came in 13th place, 2 minutes 5 seconds down. I mean, really, there was a race up the front, and then a lot of riders came in close together behind him when Indurain just mercilessly hammered himself into the ground. With some jolly good little climbers going away now.
There is, yeah. Well, like Bianchi and Rodriguez, they are very good climbers. They had a good ride the other day. But Indurain will not be too happy to see these two riders going away, and also these two, but also because Cubino being in the front group, and also has a teammate. Like if Cubino was on his own, it'd be one thing, but he has one teammate there with him who will ride for him when he gets to the front. So Indurain will maybe not react straight away, but he'd be not too happy with this. This is the unfortunate part now that they see that the likes of his direct rivals, the likes of Andres Cuevas, Rominger and Capucci are only out of contention, but they're not under 100% today.
Well, of course, we talk about these riders not having bad days and going for the Tour. And Rominger, I think, said he's ridden 4 years and never had a bad day, and he had one the other day. But we never know. We see with Indurain likewise that there's a chap who never seems to have an off day, but he could have a day struggling, and then suddenly these gaps could close down a bit. This race is not over by any means, Ed. I remember my producer, Eurosport, Annette, when that day that we went into Paris, and there's something like 50 seconds gap between Fignon and Le Monde, and she said, don't throw it away, David. Le Monde could still win. I thought, never. Not from first side. 24 kilometres. He's got to do more than 2 seconds a kilometre into Paris. Fignon, the Parisian, Fignon will just ride in there, and zap, he went in there and knocked 8 seconds out of him. So you never know. There's still always something. Bike racing is like that, isn't it? Something can happen that you did not expect, and so this race isn't over until we get into Paris on Sunday week.
Well, you never say never.
No.
As we come to for Cordes, there's 1 kilometre to go now to the 1 kilometre to go to the top. But going back to Indurain again, once he gets over this hill, if he has lost any of his teammates, like you must remember, he still has 3 climbs to go, with the Col d'Aspin being very, very similar to the Col de Perisur. The only difference being its second category compared to the Col de Perisur being the first category. Then it's the Col de Tourmalet, which lasts 20 odd kilometres, which will bring it back up again from about 700 metres up to 2,100 15 metres before dropping down another 25 kilometres to the foot of Les Ardennes. So if Indurain finds themselves isolated on top of the Périsur, and there's no one or two of his teammates should get back on a descent, but he will still find himself being very lonesome when he hits the final hill of Les Ardennes.
So the riders on this long climb up to the top, and these climbs have been used so many times in the past. So the Périsur now, it's been, this is the 48th time that it's been over the top of the Périsur. The Aspin is going to be 58 times. The Tourmalet, the record of 65 times.
As you can see on the screen here, if you're looking straight ahead of you, you can see the trace of the road going up through the mountain and eventually goes through the V down on the top. So it's very discouraging for the riders when you're going up here. I'm sure for Rinko at the moment, him being a little bit under pressure, looking up and seeing the top, I'm sure it's demoralising. But as far as I remember, on this part of the climb is a bit of a false flat. So he'd have, if he can have this, make the most of this false flat and get back on again, then he might recover then to the final kilometre and a half then with the front boys.
So the big climb still going on. This man's gap now cut to 2 minutes and 30 seconds. Torres, that has been out now something like 50 miles on his own, and he's had to do all the work, nobody to help him, and now Marie it is that's coming up to try and catch him. The other man that been with Marie Polly being hauled back into the main group, and this little group here. Rodriguez on the left-hand side here, bouncing out the saddle. The typical tactics of the little mountain climbers. They can seem to sprint along here. If you look at the size of the bicycles, you can see the small head on the bike, which shows they're very small, diminutive little riders, and that suits them as regards climbing up hills like this. And that's the amazing thing is that Miguel Indurain is 6'2", weighs 12 stones, and he can still climb. He's just got sheer power to take him up, and I think this particular climb will suit him. And although that gap is growing all the time, it looks like another Mapei class riders.
You can see Rominger there, which is a good sign, because as you remember the other day we saw them on the road, and Rominger was always behind Indurain 3 or 4 places, so we felt he wasn't going on a good day. Whereas today we see him actually on Miguel's wheel, so there's a good chance that Rominger has actually recovered. He may not be 100%, but even if he's in there with a little chance and he has a go on the final hill, it'll give us something to talk about.
And there you are, that's the climb. 108 kilometres of racing covered. He went away at 32 kilometres, this rider here. So he's done some 70-odd kilometres, nearly 80 kilometres, that's 50 miles, and he's going to take the first climb of the day. And the crowd applauding his performance as he goes up over the top of the Périsur. Enormous sigh of relief, I think, as far as he's concerned, with that climb under his belt.
It's a very good move for Richard Viank and the Festina team, because him having Cordes in the front of some 7 minutes or so, he hasn't got to ride with these boys. The riders the likes of Rodriguez and Coupineau and his teammate, they're going to do all the riding now until they catch the group in front, and Viank will sit there and be towed along. And maybe we all know Viank is a very good tester. He often has to go on the hill, so we could possibly see him taking off on the Tourmalet, for example, and holding off to the finish. But it's a long way to go. Yeah, it's very difficult to say what's going to happen for the moment. It's a very special race so far. There's been no pattern to the tactics from anybody, and with the fact that we don't know what Rominger is going to be like today, we don't know what Les Rivas is going to be like, it's very difficult for us to kind of predict anything happening today.
Well, the climb they're on now, the Périsur, altitude 1,569 metres above sea level. Not the biggest one we're going to go over today by any means. There you can see up above the hairpin this little group of specialist climbers and the main pack just down below them. Indurain up near the front of this main group of riders. Little breakaway in front, begin to split now somewhat as I think that's Rincon for the Once team in the pink, drifting off the pace at the front. He should be followed up any moment now, and 1 or 2 riders further back. So we've probably only got about 50 or 60 riders left in the pack now after the starters. We lost 4 men who didn't start today. The field had originally been 173, so we've got 169 riders at the moment.
This group now of Coupineau and Viank is 5 minutes down on Cordes at the 1 kilometre to the Grand Prix of the Mountain Point. But looking back to the group of Miguel Indurain again, we saw he had 2 teammates with him there that we can see for the moment. it's not in their interest to ride so hard after this group for the moment, because if they ride hard after this group, they're going to drop their own riders from their own teammates from the bunch. And Miguel will need these teammates later on the flat between the bottom of the Perry Stewart and the Aspin, and once again from the bottom of the Aspin through to the Tourmalet. So Miguel's tactics must be to try and keep as many teammates as he can with him until the foot of the Tourmalet. If he has 1 or 2 teammates left to the foot of the Tourmalet, he can make them ride their eyeballs out to the top of the Tourmalet, and after that he can take over. But it's not in his own interest at this moment to drop his teammates, because he will be needing them as much as possible after this. Remembering that the call of Perry Stewart is the first major call of the day, and the second climb being the Col d'Aspin, which will be another 25, actually 30 kilometres. But from the top of the Perry Stewart to the bottom of the Col d'Aspin, he will need as many teammates as he can to make a tempo in the front and keep the gap down. So he will try and keep his men with him as much as he can.
And the poor side here of Polly, who went away with Marie, chasing after Torres, now being caught and dropped by the mountain goats, who are prancing up here. And you see a difference in style. The big fellow hauling his large frame up here, and these riders just revving the little low gears along and going up very smoothly indeed. We're looking here at the back at 106. That's little Pelliccioli of the Pulte team. Just up in front, Nelson Rodriguez from the ZG Mobley team in the yellowish colours. The green and white and bluey colours to left-hand side, Loni Cabino, and then Veronk prancing out the saddle in the blue, and I think it's Udo Bolts for the Telecom team up in front, who's setting the fastest pace at the moment.
These riders now are about 500 metres from the top of the Grand Prix of the Mountains. Then they plunge down a very, very long descent then down to the foot of Col d'Aspin. But we don't know actually how far they are ahead of the group of Indurain, but I reckon it could be almost a minute, because we saw the technical cars there of Mavic in behind them, and they can only go in behind them when they have about 45 seconds. So if they go over the top of this hill with 45 seconds or a minute in hand over Miguel Indurain, it'll give them a very good chance of getting to the Aspin alone, as Richard Virenque now takes second or third place on the Grand Prix of the Mountains.
And they're 4 minutes and 33 seconds down from the main man over the top, Torres, and the one man locked in between is Thierry Marie. That chasing group then of Cabino, Veronk, Bolts and Pelliccioli over the top, 4:33 in arrears.
As you see here, Indurain
Thierry Marie and Torres now in the lead. Marie fought his way up this Aspin climb, clawed his way up to that man in the lead, Torres, who broke away just after some 32 kilometres had been covered. That was up the climb of the Côte de Mollazon, and now Torres has some support, and what a tremendous ride he's been putting in, because on this climb here, up the Aspin, when we get to the top of this climb, they'll have covered 139 kilometres, so he's been out there in the lead now for something in excess of 100 kilometres. We're back with the chasing group here in the centre there. Dufaux in the pink jersey for the Once team. The Calme colour is Cabino. On the left-hand side is Veronk. Pelliccioli is the fellow just going up the front in the other yellow-coloured jersey, and Udo Bolts sitting on the wheel here. 2 men in front. This chasing group here, and the main pack back about at least another minute and a half behind this group here.
I was saying that if the riders here, we see on our screen here, the chasing group got it together, they might pull down the 2 to 3 minute gap which separated them and the leading group of Cordes and Thierry Marie before the top. As you can see here on your screen, they're not very far away now. So this goes to show you what a group of 4 or 5 riders who are climbers, or 2 or 3 of them are climbers, what they can do against riders that are not climbers. Like they pull back 3 minutes and about 5 kilometres on 2 riders who are not actual climbers.
And the specialists making their way up, and the Torres, who is quite a useful climber indeed himself, one stage in the Tour of Italy. Tour of Spain, now with Thierry Marie burying himself up on front. Thierry, look over your shoulder, coming up, chap. He's still trying to stay away from this little lot, but they'll sweep up to him now, and then that will certainly be a bit of company as far as they're concerned. And Torres looking back, has he got anything left in his legs to stay? But no, Torres is being dropped. Poor Torres, been out there then for over 100 kilometres, over 60 miles. The little breakaway group come up to him now and drop him for dead, and next he'll hope to hang on to the main peloton. Thierry Marie is exactly the same. These specialist climbers, bang, 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 past they go, and Terry is going to haul his frame in behind them and just hang on for grim death. Polly here, who'd been out with Terry Marie, got swallowed up once before by the bunch, then got back up again. Now he's been caught yet again with a neat lining caps, by the way. That yellow cap he's got on his head, he takes one of his ordinary racing caps in the morning, gets a pair of scissors and cuts it round, so he just has a peak over the front of his eyes and the top open so the heat can come out of his head. I saw him doing it the other day, a very neat bit of scissor work he was doing. And Terry Marie now rolling quite a big gear, isn't he?
Well, it just looks like he's rolling a big gear, but it's not really. It's because he's very, very tired. But the riders like Paulie, this morning starting out the stage, he would looked at the graphic and said, well, this is the day where I've got to be careful, because if there's any kind of a fight on the hills, I'm going to get dropped. I must be inside the time limit. So the only way of being guaranteed of getting inside the time limit is if I can get away ahead. So he tried, of course, getting into a group early on, which he did. He got over the first hill in a group, so now he's kind of more or less guaranteed now that he will finish inside the time limit. So it's a very important factor when you're not a climber and you're very, very tall and not very good in the mountains, because today, with there being 4 major climbs, the first climb being with 100 kilometers to go, if you get belled out on the first hill, you still have 4 more climbs to go and 100 kilometers and all to do. So it's very difficult to be inside the time limit. So a rider like Paulie would have had that in his mind this morning when he went away. He wouldn't have had at all any thoughts of the stage win or doing well on the stage.
And he's trying to fight his way back up again, I think, at the moment, looking down through the gloom.
It's Marie.
Marie's got shot off now. He just saw a bluish-coloured jersey, but he's gone now. And there we are. The
4 minutes still 4 minutes ahead of the chasing group.
Useful.
And this is a very useful group because even though Indurain has his teammates behind riding and on the front, this group here seems to be getting on reasonably well together. I mean, as we have the likes of Defoe, Cubino, and Rodriguez in this group here. This group could go a long way if they keep working well together.
Well, Terry Marie got dropped off. He was started this morning in 15th place, and he was 12 minutes 52 seconds down on the leader, Miguel Indurain. And we're back then here with the Polly rider Pelliccioli, and just up in front, Rodriguez, the Colombian, and on the far side, the Spanish rider Cubino in the green with the green pants on. And then the French rider for Festina in the blue just up in front, and Udo Waltz from Germany, and Dufresne, the Swiss rider. So we've got a right league of nations here. We've got one from all the major nations.
But it's very strange. It's the first time in the Tour de France since it started last year.
In the dark blue and light blue for Festina is Veronk, and Cubino it is in the green shorts for Kelmy that's putting the pressure on at the front. These riders came up the Peloton chasing after the early breakaway, who was Torres. He's now been caught and dropped. Torres went away after 32 kilometre tax turn coming from Veronk as he goes up towards the final kilometre of the climb, looking for maximum points, looking for the 5,000 francs. Veronk looks back and Pelliccioli comes at him very quickly indeed. It's between these two to the top of the climb. There's 2 more big climbs yet to come. This is the Aspen, and it's Veronk then accelerating, looking back over his shoulder, and Pelliccioli hasn't got anything to go at all. Veronk still bouncing out the saddle, dancing all over the place, goes through the massive crowds here, and the French absolutely delighted. There's so many people on holiday this particular week, and they've come up here in their camper vans and their cars, and they've camped out in their tents, and they've walked away up the climb to see the first one over the top, and it's going to be the Frenchman. He's got it. That's Veronk taking 30 points as well as the prize, the top of the Col d'Aspin.
This is a mistake on the behalf of Bianchi. He's been saying he has got a very childish attitude, like he's written off his team, his companions here in the group, and now he's used energy going for that sprint. But he could have won his sprint, finishing 20 yards ahead of the group, and saved himself an awful lot of energy which he might need later on. But now you're seeing he has to freewheel, he has to brake, he has to wait till the lads get back onto him. And why? No, we don't know, and I don't think he even knows himself. Maybe it makes him feel great, the fact that he's beating the lads and left the lads 100 yards behind him, but it's not an intelligent move from Bianchi.
He's also had the scissors to his 2 shirts, rather.
Actually, the reason for that is actually because I meant to say it earlier on, is that when you have the elastic band on your jersey, the air doesn't go through. Whereas to cut off the elastic band on the jersey means the air goes through, and it's like a ventilation for the body. So it's that's why we see a lot of the riders now cutting off the elastic band. 2 or 3 years ago, the lads are cutting off the sleeve of the jersey, and a lot of them found themselves getting a penalised for it, because the organisation felt that it wasn't good for the image of the sport. That the image of the sport must be clean, and a jersey is a jersey, and you don't start cutting it up in the middle of a stage or for a stage just to let air in. And because the jersey in the start of the year, it has to be homologated and has to be given into the French Federation or the UCI, the World Federation, and it is classified as being the jersey of a team. If you start cutting off the sleeves off, it's no longer a jersey which has been homologated. So very same like in Formula 1 or motor racing or whatever, to a smaller degree. But the jersey which has been passed in the start of the year has to be the jersey used all year round. So there was a number of reasons why the lads were penalised for it.
And also, of course, like here, with 25 on the jersey, the sponsor's got there, so suddenly his sponsor finds his name being cut off the jersey.
Well, that's one thing, but also the fact that the jersey has been accepted in the start of the year as it is. Whereas you go along modifying it for a Tour de France because they're too warm or whatever, the jersey is no longer the jersey that's been homologated, so there's always a little bit of war over it.
2:21 back, or 2:12 back to Terry Marie, who's pulled himself up that climb and now looking forward to the swift descent down to the bottom of the valley, and we're looking forward to the time gap to the chasing group. They go down to bottom to Saint-Marie de Campan, and that is 850 metres above sea level. They're going to drop then about 700 metres, and that's all going to happen in about 12 kilometres. So it's a very, very fast descent indeed, and Virenque decides for some reason or other to steamroller away.
Yep.
It was a day for going round and meeting people at the various hotels in the day off, where the riders, someone went out, as Stephen was saying, to ride and keep their legs nice and fresh, and they had that interest.
Here we have Gianni Bugno. This is the bus. Gianni Bugno, Alcala, Lauritsen, Abdujaparov.
Yeah, this is the bus.
This is the bus, but it's amazing to see Gianni Bugno in the bus.
Cool. Yeah. Shamil in there in the bus as well, the winner of the Paris-Roubaix. And Ludwig sitting up now on the telecom.
Ludwig is normal. Peter
de Klerk.
Peter de Klerk.
That's the polka dot jersey. If you just switch that.
I see riders here taking paper from the crowd. As I was saying earlier on, some of the riders are taking paper from the crowd. They're putting up the jerseys to event getting any. I seen the right hand side of the road, a guy hanging up bottles even. Like they use this, the people on top of the crowd for. We saw a guy a minute ago handing over a bottle. That could be one of the people from the team. They put one of their men on top of the hill, because as the team cars are so far behind here, and it's difficult for a team car to get through and descend to hand over a bottle, they will put one of the team men unofficially on top of the hill, and when the riders are coming through, puts hand over a bottle and hands the bottle to the riders, to his own riders of course, and which is a very, very good tactic.
Well, it's 11 and a half minutes on my stopwatch back from the group of 5 over the top to that group we've just seen go through. The yellow jersey went through about 5 minutes down, so they were something about another 5-6 minutes behind the yellow jersey group. Actually, the little fellow Robic was so small, they used to hand him a bottle up made of lead, by the way, in the days gone by, to put it onto his bike to make it heavier going down the other side, because he was even smaller than Pantani.
Well, I heard thought that myself, but I didn't really believe it, but I was...
Well, they say so many times, it either has to be true or it's been created to be true.
Yeah, but it's been confirmed since. I've spoken to Bartali a few months ago, and he was talking about the same incident, and Bartali told me about it, who was an Italian rider as well, so I think you can believe it, I think.
Well, Bartali would know, because he was there at the time. And a quick check on the old route here for Carlo Bowman's a good sprinter, one-time champion of Belgium, now working hard in the GB team, or has been, for Mazeau's yellow jersey and Vanzella's yellow jersey, well, with the flatter stage of the Tour de France. But now we've got into mountains, and it's having its effect upon these riders who specialise in the flat, specialise in the classics, and when they come to the Tour de France, they just have to get through these days like this one, so that when we get back onto flatter roads, they have a chance of getting more success for their teams.
We saw Carlos looking at his map a minute ago to see where he was going. We saw him in the middle of nowhere, no man's land as we call it. We don't know, even ourselves here in the commentary, we don't know whether he's behind this group between Indurain and this group, or if he's between Indurain and the bus. So it looked like he was waiting for the bus to come along and pick him up, so he may have been dropped from the group of Indurain. Very, very good, not very good for morale.
And of course, all the way up to, they've got the little signboard saying 21, 20, 19, and it's a long way up to the top of this one, but it gets steeper. This start here at Saint-Marie de Campan, it's a gradual start to begin with, but it does get much steeper. And on the drop down the other side, Steve, I felt myself that you get this feeling when you look over the edge of a high building in your legs when they sort of empty of blood. I suppose the riders just daren't look over the side when you're going down. Otherwise, you'd find yourself begin to shake with fear.
I remember going down it several times. One thing that always frightened me was puncturing. Yeah. Because you're going down it so fast. Like in the early days, you're always afraid of rolling your tubular off because you're all the time braking going down the corners. And when I put you in a picture that the tubular was always glued onto the rim, whereas from the heat of your brake blocks going down, braking against the rim, it melted the glue on the rim, and you often had a factor where your tire might roll going into the descent. So you're always afraid of, you're like making a ABS yourself on the bike. You're braking with the front, and you're braking in the back, braking in the front, braking in the back, alternating your brakes so that you wouldn't heat your rims so much that it melted the glue and make your tubular turn. But now we have the no tubulars now. Very few riders have tubulars. Most of them have tires now, and the main worry now in the tires is that you puncture and you cannot control your bike. So this is the main problem. They don't worry about crashing so much. They worry more about rolling a tire, rolling a tubular, and not being able to control the bike and going over the edge.
Confirmation of the position in the Kingdom Advantage competition just came up on our screen. Richard Virenque leading now with 101 points. De Klerk in second with 74. Leblanc back in third with 51 points. So Virenque definitely looking for the polka dot jersey. He must have decided way back down the course when we were early into Tour de France that that's what he'd go for. We didn't see a lot of him early on as Murray still wedged in no man's land. I think Murray at the moment is about roughly on my watch, about 2 minutes and 20 seconds behind the breakaway group.
The Vanessas now will ride fairly cautiously again up the foot of the Tourmalet, because the foot of it is not very difficult. It's not very difficult for a climber, I mean, but it's a climb where you can keep a good tempo going and wait for the attacks. And I myself here, sitting here in the commentary, I'd be very disappointed there's no attacks, because I feel that Romain Guerre, Villas Cuevas and other riders, Pantani as well, they will be having a go on the Tourmalet. They have to have a go because they cannot leave it until the last minute. Even if they get caught again on the Tourmalet, they must have a go on the Tourmalet if they want to get any kind of way near the yellow jersey of Mikel Indurain.
The Benesso team still working hard on the front, heading towards Saint-Marie de Campan, 850 metres above sea level. When they get there and start the climb up to 2,115 metres from there, so they've got something like 1,300 metres of climbing ahead of them, and it's a long old gradual climb getting steeper and steeper and steeper, and the Benesso team then begin to put the pressure on to try and pull back that breakaway group. But as Stephen was saying, we do need some attacks on this particular one, very much near the top, where it gets very twisty, and that certainly is going to have its effect upon the tired legs, because as they start the climb now, and they're well up on the first lower part of it, they've covered so far about 155 kilometres of racing today.
Normally there's a tunnel about 5 kilometres up, 6 kilometres up, and that's where the group normally splits. That's where the pressure normally goes on, and that's where the riders start accumulating the fatigue from the previous 15 kilometres going up. So when we see the tunnel, hopefully we'll see a bit of action. If we haven't seen it before, then hopefully we'll see a bit of action then. But today on the programme we have 2 third category hills. We have 1 fourth category hill, 1 first category hill, 1 second category hill, and 2 Orse category hills. The Orse category hills are climbs which are not first category climbs, but more than a first category climb. So you can imagine the Col de Paris-Sourde was the first category climb, and the Col de Tourmalet is Orse category, which means there's no category. It's
indescribable.
Indescribable. That's what it is, Dave. That's in good, pure, simple English. That's what it is. Undescribable. So you can imagine how hard the Tourmalet is, and also Luz Ardiden.
I'm sure the riders, Stephen, have their own descriptions for them, but they're all things we shouldn't put out over the air. Sure. And particularly if you're struggling and getting hammered to death. It's all right if you prance up the thing. I was thinking, so that was an easy climb today, I enjoyed it. But conversely, if you're struggling and really taking a belt, then you really get yourself into all sorts of trouble. Then you've got a few choice things to say about the hill. And of course, the people who organised the route and put 4 climbs in the last 69 kilometres, because that's what they've done today. We've got 4 big climbs in succession. They keep altering the route of the Tour de France. These are familiar climbs that we're going over now, because as they come up towards the Tourmalet, we have in fact been over the Tourmalet in the Tour de France since it first started in 1903, and no less than 65 times that the Tourmalet has featured on the Tour de France list. Well, as they climb that hill, we're going to take a short break. to come back in a minute. There's climbing the Tourmalet, this famous climb. At the top then, the souvenir on the Desgrange, a special prize of 50,000 francs to the first man over the top, because it was Henri Desgrange who thought up the idea in 1903. In fact, he thought the idea in 1902, but they managed to put the first Tour de France together in 1903. But they should have a race around France to sell the copies of L'Auto, which was the newspaper that he was writing for. And so in memory of that great man, at the top of this Tourmalet, we have a special prize today of 50,000 French francs, which is around about £6,000 worth of money. Here, Thierry Marie grabbing a bottle of water from a spectator, and that man will know, I gave Thierry Marie a drink on the bottom of the Tourmalet, and he tells his friends about it, and actually we catch it on television too. So very happy here, because he's in no man's land, poor chap. He hasn't really got his team card to him. He's desperate for a drink, isn't he?
He's desperate for a drink, but it must be very, very bad, because normally the likes of Thierry Marie or most of the top riders would not take a drink from somebody on the side of the road, because God knows where it's come from. It could have been taken from a well, it could have been taken from a stream coming down the mountain, it could be Vitel, it could be anything, it could be from a good source, but it could be water that's been lying in the bottle for the last 2 hours, it could be warm. So normally anybody that takes water from the side of the road will be taking it just to put over themselves, to cool themselves down, but it would nicely drink it. They might take it in the mouth and spit it out again, but it's very, very, very seldom that very rare that a rider will actually drink the water he gets from the side of the road.
Well, the days when the riders would stop at cafes and help themselves to food, and also lovely photographs of them having to get their own food along the way, even if they did pay for it in the 1900s, with their bottles of wine in front of them too, because they weren't scientifically feeding in those days. If you think back to 1903, when the riders covered 6 stages, 60 riders started, 21 finished, and the whole distance of the race was 2,428 kilometres, so that they were doing 400 kilometres a day, and bit by bit they put in more stages and shortened the distances, and also then started going to the mountains, because originally the Tour de France was on the flat part, well, undulated, but certainly not over the big mountains. They didn't come until much later in the sort of 1910s, when they started going into the mountains. And here, mountain climber himself on the front, Veronk, who took the last of the climbs over the top of the Aspen, is still on the front here, heading up towards the top of the Col de Tourmalet. Very fascinating climb indeed. Looking back over the people who've been over the Tourmalet in the past, I mentioned Robert Miller's name so many times. He actually went over the top in 89 in fine form. I don't know whether the Brits are going to find another climber to replace him, but hope somebody out there will do that. 1993, Tony Rominger was over the top in first place, and Chiappucci way back in 1991.
At the moment, this group, the rider that looks the most impressive for the climb would be Vihank. I think it's not having that to be a genie to think that to see who's going the best, but Vihank seems to be the most comfortable. Defo looks comfortable sitting down, and so does Corbino. He's got a very, very good style, but the strongest rider looks to be Vihank, so I'll be very surprised if he doesn't have a go soon.
And another man who climbed over here like Indurain in fine form was Merckx, who went over the top in 1969 in first place. Now when we look back at the list of all the climbers over the years, the big names are on the list here of specialist mountain climbers. Merckx was another man like Indurain, a big fellow who was quite capable of riding the big climbs and being on the front all the way up, just to sort of exhaust other people. But at the moment we've got the specialist climbers in action here, although I would say that Udo Bolt probably wouldn't rank himself as being an out-and-out mountain goat, because he's certainly the largest of this little group here, and has survived remarkably well so far.
No, he has in the last 2 years made an awful lot of progress in the mountains. Last year, when I left Carrera, they were looking to both to come and help Chiappucci in the mountains, but didn't reach an agreement to take him in the team. But he is a very good rider on the climb. He's not by no means a climber, specialist climber. He's by no means a specialist in time trials, but he's a rider that can go anywhere. So. Don't know what's happening up there, but
I don't know if our mics may not pick up all the sound, because they're quite close to our lips, by the way, but the Colombians have now come on song, and they've got Nelson Rodriguez in that breakaway group at the front, and I think all across South America they're dancing in the streets if their commentary is to go by upstairs. They start and deafen us, but certainly it's nice to see one of the Colombians up in front, because they haven't done quite as well since Luis Herrera, who was dominating, wasn't he?
But we are unfortunate, Dave, that every day we are under these men, so we'll have to be claiming for damage, ear damage, because even though we have got our headsets on here at the moment, it is very difficult to shut out their conversation, because they're so noisy and so eager to get things across. I don't know how today they're going to do comment for 2.5 hours, so I don't know how they're going to be at the end of 2.5 hours, but if Rodriguez stays in the front, I can imagine that even our ears will sort of nice.
I think also I'm going to send him a laundry bill up there, because we've got sort of slats, holes in the floors here, and one of the Clemens was eating a peach earlier on, and all the peach droppings came down the back of my shirt here. So I'll send him the laundry bill later on.
Thank you for the description, Dave.
Yes, all the trials and tribulations of commentating on the Tour de France. No, we're enjoying it here, and I hope you are back at home, viewers of Eurosport across the whole of Europe. 50-odd million homes can now receive our broadcast from the Tour de France live on Eurosport. My co-commentator Stephen Roche, winner of this race in 1987, also Tour of Italy 1987, and the World Championships 3, all in 1 year. Third in this race too in the past. So Stephen got the in-depth knowledge which Eurosport is bringing to you. My name's David Duffield, and we're enjoying being on air for 4 hours surrounding Miguel Indurain in the yellow, and they're now 6 minutes and 15 seconds down on this breakaway group in front, and on the left-hand side, right-hand side of the screen, coming through very quickly. Vironk is starting to attack. Vironk is going away again, and we've got a long way to go, but he's gone. Vironk has gone. Cabino has not decided whether to go after him or not, but Cabino's the only one close enough, I think, to try and do something, and it is Cabino who goes across. Then quickly followed by Dufo. An amazing acceleration there, but it brings up the rest. Rodriguez and the Colombian has gone up as well, and one has just got blasted off. Udo Bolts has got to work his way back again. Is that just a tester?
I'd say the tester for the first off, but one thing that surprised me with Vironk, until this year, he always did very small gears in the hills, and he's very, very agile and very good. Whereas during the winter, we see our two lads here from the breakaway group flying away back on again. But during the winter, I believe that Vironk did an awful lot of weight training and believes himself now that he has much more power. You can see him here now, he's spinning a gear, and when he attacks, he goes straight into a big gear. I feel he's making a mistake when he's doing this, but he believes himself that he has a lot more power now than last year, so he must use bigger gears. Whereas not because he uses bigger gears, you go faster, as we all know. But the group now is split down now to 4 riders. But Kubino is a very good rider, so Defoe seems to be getting a hammer. Yeah, Defoe seems to be attack of Kubino. So Kubino accelerating as Defoe goes out the back door. But Tourmalet is very, very long, Dave.
Yes, that's what surprised me, because this climb, which you know very well, it gets so steep earlier on. They're attacking now and shelling people out. Surely with a lead of 6 minutes 15 seconds, to wait at another 5 kilometres or something before jumping around would have been quite useful, because they could have worked together. Here they're down to 3 men, aren't they?
They do, but I reckon that they feel that each of them feel that we are climbers. These guys are slowing me down, so I'm going to have a go and try and split the group. Kubino knows that he can go to finish on his own. Rodriguez knows he can go well, and so does Vironk. So they want to try and get rid of one if they can, or the other, or get rid of the weaker guys, because they were not going flat out earlier on. That's where I reckon that Vironk would attack. So they feel that we're faster going with 3 riders that are riding well than trying to ride with 5 riders, which are 2 of them are not in super condition on the hills.
So Vironk it is then who activated the splits in this group, and looks like they're dropping in one of the officials' cars, so the gap must be getting on to around about 30 seconds. So you're going to keep an eye on what's going on, as Cabino on the front then also stays victor in the Tour de France in the mountains. So Cabino here on the front, just ahead of Rodriguez and Vironk. So we've got a Spanish rider, one from Colombia and one from France, and certainly I think the Colombians have gone to an advertisement break. It's gone very quiet all of a sudden.
They have, yeah. Cabino now is putting the pressure on. A beautiful style. He hasn't given the satisfaction that everybody thought he would have given a couple of years ago, because he showed great promise. But he's a rider who was very, very fragile. He often has problems with tendons or knee problems or ankle problems, but until this time he hasn't had a very consecutive 2 years going well.
And Cabino on the front, probably the oldest in the group. I've just checked their ages, but Nelson Rodriguez has been coming on song quite well. He was 6th in the Tour of Italy, which finished just a week or so before the Tour de France, and I watched him ride there, 2 weeks, right? I watched him ride there, Stephen, and he was very, very cool, very clever, seemed to be coming on. I mean, he's only been a pro, well, the last 4 years or such now, but certainly he seems to be having a good year right now. So Rodriguez just behind the wheel of Corbino, and then Veronk back into 3rd spot. This year,
Corbino's putting the pressure on. I was 11 kilometres. I think Rodriguez was getting a bit difficult, so he was. Before we lost that picture, Rodriguez was in a little bit difficulty. He is, yes, you see here. Back to Corbino and Veronk.
So Rodriguez has gone now and weakened and blown away then. So he's out of it. This man then has had a 5th place in Giro Trentino, 5th place in the GP Laciono, but now he's just been blown out of this one. So bad luck then, Nelson Rodriguez and the Colombians upstairs. You'd think they're going to national mourning at the moment. So the field being split and decimated on this climb of the Tourmalet. Still up there, the 2 leaders, Corbino and Veronk. They're doing what they can now to break this one apart. When they go to the top of the Tourmalet and down the other side, there were just some 35 kilometres to go to the finish. So that's just some 20 miles, of which half it is downhill and then the other half is uphill. And the big bunch now could be, I suppose, sensing a possibility of closing the gap as the field will get messages that the leading 5 riders are now in penny numbers splattered all over the place. Still Thierry Marie is in there as well, but what a race we've got on our hands today.
On the general classification, he has a lot of time to play around with, but Indurain may not react straight away, because by reacting straight away he'll blow out some of his teammates, and he doesn't want that at this stage. So when I spoke to Pantani this morning, and I felt he was making an error with his gears, because he put on a 39-24 on the back, and he had a 20-22-24 on the back, which meant going up and the gears were going up 2 at a time, which I felt was a bit too much. I always rode the Tourmalet on a 41-22-23, and always going for 22 when I was going fast, and 23 when I was going slow, whereas Pantani has put a 39-24, whereas I felt there was an error on his behalf. I said it to him, but I said, don't want you to change your mind now, but I reckon you're making a mistake with the gears. And I guess we saw him here a minute ago, he was using a bigger gear than normal, and this is possibly because you either have a big gear or a small gear, whereas he hasn't got the right gear. So it's good handicapping that today.
But Pantani, the revelation in the Tour of Italy, that man who on the Saturday and Sunday in the Tour of Italy swept from nowhere to move into 2nd place. A frightening 2 days in the mountains when he won the stages and demoralised everybody else, is now showing his hand in the Tour de France and is doing what he can to get away. But Pantani coming into the race today, let's have a look on the general classification. He's fairly well down at the moment. He didn't have a very good time trial, got absolutely smashed out of sight in the time trial, so he's not any great threat again. He's lying 26 overall, 15 minutes and 3 seconds down, as Thierry Marie still struggles manfully on a Pantani here, heading up the climb. Well, if people in England buy their copy of Cycling next week, they'll see an interview in there, because I saw William Fotheringham interviewing Pantani last night in the hotel for the readers of the weekly magazine, so you can hear from Pantani himself just his own words as spoken in Italian to William Fotheringham, who was understanding every word as well. Thierry Marie now dying 1,000 deaths. Oh dear.
Being caught by Diffo, I think. Conti. Roberto Conti. Yeah, Conti must have attacked there, but we hadn't got him on our screen earlier on when he attacked him. He probably attacked and Pantani went after him. So we see the peloton now caught now by the bunch of Indurain. You can see the difference in the speed, and Thierry being struggling to keep his bike going.
Well, Thierry, you've done another great day in the saddle. A great, courageous rider he is too, but now he's got to try and hang on to this bunch. He goes fast, otherwise he's got to wait for the bus as well when it comes through. Still, the relentless effort of the Banesto team, with Alonso on the front, taking up his team leader just behind. Here, Pantani going away. In 2 stages in the Tour of basically the 14th and 15th stage. He left from nowhere on general classification to take over the second spot. On the first day into Lens Morano, he beat Bunyo over the line by 40 seconds, having racing for 7 hours and 43 minutes. And the next day, Morano Africa, Pantani won that stage, and he won it clearly by 2 minutes and 52 seconds from Chiappucci, 3:27 back to Belli, and Pantani moved straight up into second spot on general classification behind Berzin at 1 minute and 18 seconds. He came from nowhere, suddenly came to within 1 minute and 18 seconds of the leader in the Tour of Italy. 2 days in the mountains in the Tour of Italy. So this may be just a start as far as he's concerned if he can keep this up, but once he's over the top, though, he's a very light fellow, and they might haul him in on the descent. But would you have gone now or waited for Lutz Ardiden?
He went too early, so but he can't do that all the time. So today maybe he is doing has made the right decision.
Well, that's the stage into Lourdes Haut-de-Camp that Stephen Rose was talking about. When Pantani finished third, 18 seconds behind Leblanc, who won the stage, and Veronk was in fourth place, 56 seconds back. He's a fellow on the left-hand side here now, and Cubino finished 10th that day, 1 minute 50 seconds back. He's a fellow on the right-hand side now of your screen. So
it is strange to see this, Dave, actually. But look at the riders. They're not actually riding into each other's wheels to get shelter. They're riding one beside each other because a mountain climber must make his own pace. You were making the comparison between Robert Miller there a few minutes ago and Cubino. Robert Miller very rarely rode on the wheels because he always made his own tempo, his own click-clack tempo up the hills. And Cubino's the very same rider. He's riding his own tempo. He won't change his tempo to suit yours. He'll ride his own tempo. If he gets dropped a little bit, he claws it back again. And Rob Miller was the very, very same. So this is why Rominger or Cubino, it's difficult for him to stay on Vianney's wheel, because of Vianney being an unsteady rider, we're going to go fast and slow pace. It's difficult for Cubino to stay on his wheel, so he feels better off staying on the side of the wheel where he can make his own tempo regular than having an alternative, an alterating speed set by Vianney.
Crowds lined up this tremendous climb. You see there's one climb, there's another, there's this one they're on now. 4 massive big climbs, all in the last 60 miles of the race on this stage into the finish at Lutz Ardiden. It opens out here quite a bit for the part of the Tourmalet where the chalets are, where the people go skiing up here. Then it narrows off a bit further, and Cubino is beginning to find the pressure just a bit much, but there's still some way to go on this climb, and the tricky bit is yet to come.
Thanks, Don. Bianchi had to go. He just looked around, saw Cubino under pressure, and had to go. But he has been looking the strongest of the group since he got away 2 miles ago. He was looking the strongest, so now he's proved it once again. He's having a go. He could hold on because he has done this kind of effort several times before. He has done out in long breaks, and he seems to be in excellent form at the moment. We've seen him in a lot of breaks so far in the Tour, and he's always hovering around the front, but being very unlucky. But now he's in the front and he's on his own.
This is the wide part of the course where it narrows down and twists and turns tortuously towards the top. The sun has gone in, but it's very humid, and the heat is hanging about off the buildings. He's sucking it up to on this climb up to the Col de Tourmalet. 2,115 metres. They've been climbing steadily ever since they turned off from Samoda compound. Today they've 1,300 metres of climbing, and 4,000 feet he's got to go up this climb on his own now, having left behind Cubino, and this is the only man now that matters. Can he get the special prize at the top in memory of Henri Lagrange, who founded the Tour de France, thought about the idea, then launched the first race in 1903, and 50,000 French francs should be there at the top. As far as he's concerned, he's going to join the names of the greats that have got this stage over the top of the Tourmalet in first place, and put their names in the roll call of honour. To be the man over the top is something that this man now could look back and say, yes, I got the Col de Tourmalet, yes, I got the Col d'Aspin, but will he be first over the top of Lutz Ardiden? Because that is still some distance away at the finish, because once they come over the top of here, then it is in fact 35 kilometres to go to the finish at Lutz Ardiden.
Well, the way Vianney is going at the moment, and the way we've seen him going the last few days, he has a great chance of staying right to the finish. And just going back until this year, in previous years, the Tour de France consisted of about about almost 50% of French riders, and people were always saying, well, the French this, the French that, they only get a stage win here, a stage win there. Last year the French only won one stage win, that was with Pasqualino. This year it's the lowest ever number of French riders in the points. Of 18% of the peloton is only French this year. There's one stage win with Jackie Duron, one stage win with Luc Leblanc, and a possible, we won't talk to soon, but possible third stage win with Richard Virenque. So the French have never been as few in the Tour de France, and here they are with two stages to their credit at the moment.
And after our rest day then in Lourdes, everybody revitalised. We went and had a look ourselves at the Grotto of Sainte Bernadette, where she appeared some 18 times, and that was way back in the 1880s or so. And now the riders here having their own private cross to bear on the climb up the Col de Tourmalet. 2,115 metres above sea level.
This Virenque there a second ago did the same thing as I was saying. The big lads don't drink the water. He put on his head, he splashed on his face, and his mouth open and just kind of wet his tongue with it, but then threw the bottle away.
Opening his mouth, sucking an oxygen, is now right down to the centre of his chest to get some cool air in, because it's very, very hot up the top, hot and humid, as he climbs up towards the finish here. And we're at the finish seeing some unusual sight of people going by what look like extended roller skates. They are in fact some sort of cross-country ski device you can use on the road for training for the winter. Well, winter sports here, what a lot of people know back at home. You've probably been skiing up here, and you imagine when you come up in your car, think, how the hell they race up here? Well, they do, and they do it day in and day out. Like we had a rest day yesterday. They're tired legs in this race because they covered 1,335 miles up to the rest day. An average speed of 25.8 miles an hour. And still Virenque here ploughing away at the front, stretched the whole field right the way down the mountainside, and the pressures begin to tell on him. You can see the concentration on his face now. This man is riding himself almost into oblivion to get the prize at the top, and the question mark is, will he try and stay away on the descent?
You see on his handlebars here on the left, he had a black watch. The black watch is a sport tester. You can see here on the screen, the black watch is a sport tester. On the right hand side, he has a speedometer and mileometer. The black watch will be attached to a relay put around his chest, which will give a reading of his heartbeat. At the end of the stage, the watch is taken by the team director or his doctor, put into a computer, and you get a graphic readout, the same as a heart, what do you call it?
ECG, yes.
ECG, yeah, ECG. And also, from training previous to Tour de France, Virenque will know what pulsation he must have to get the maximum from himself, and he'll be trying to keep his pulsations in around that limit so that he doesn't overdo it and use too much energy, so he'll be lacking energy in the final. So cycling now is going very, very scientific, and the likes of Virenque, the likes of Luc Leblanc, and the Italians are more scientific riders than the riders of my generation were.
Well, to Professor Hamley at Birmingham University, we started these first ECG tests on riders, and it wasn't in those days the thing that was being done, this idea of running the computer, the ECG, and putting it in. They tried it with athletes. They found they didn't stay consistently fit enough to measure you, but cyclists they found were fit. So several of us used to go to university, and they stuck all these things onto us, and you could tell me virtually with the printouts how fit I was coming for my racing. Well, they did say to me one day, he said, you've got a blip in your P wave, and I thought it was something disgusting, but he showed me what it was, and it was something to do with a lack of training or something, but there we are. That's many, many years ago, but now it's become even more scientific, but certainly that was the start by Professor Hamley at Birmingham University to understand what cyclists were made about and what made them sick. And of course it's so scientific now, they can test your output, they put you on a machine, see how many watts you can put out, they test your lungs to see what your lung capacity is, they test your heart, test everything. It must be demoralising if you're not like Indurain with the biggest lungs that anybody's got, biggest heart to pump around more blood, and at rest a heartbeat around about sort of 36 or something. But if you aren't in that category, you think, oh, will I ever win anything? But it's in the head as well, isn't it, Stephen? It isn't just what the body does, it's what's in the heads of those riders.
Exactly. You can be, like Bunyo is one of the best riders in the road at the moment, but he's having a lot of personal problems, and he just isn't getting it together. He's back in the bus. We're like that, I see Armand de Escrivas coming through there, and I think Rominger's gone. Yes, Rominger's gone. I saw Durand looking around a few minutes ago, and he was looking around for Rominger, and he saw Rominger's gone, so there could be a reaction now from Indurain, although Rominger is at 4 minutes down on general classification, so he may just say, well, if he's gone here now, he'll go again on the last hill, so I'll keep my effort onto the final hill.
What a disappointment for Tony Rominger, who put his whole season round riding and winning the Tour de France. He rode and won the Tour of Spain. He then went away to Colorado to train at altitude, specifically to have a go, because he felt last year when he finished second in the Tour de France and took the polka dot jersey of King of the Mountain, that given the right opportunity, the right training, he could win the Tour de France. But he had a very bad day the day before yesterday. He came into rest day, and that really has demolished his chances of winning this year. But he has said he'll come back next year. He still feels he can do it. But is the time still to come back, though, Steve? Because, you know, this tour is something that has been escaping. Well, he did say next year, if the press is to be believed, that he's going to ride the Giro next year and then the Tour de France, because he's come into this race under race in some respects. Well, if you have a bad day, I suppose it doesn't matter if you've been racing or not.
Well, the last 3 years, Tommy has had to ride the Tour of Spain because of a sponsor being Spanish. But this year his sponsor is half Spanish and half Italian. So he rode it this year, Tour of Spain, because he had previously said he would ride it. But next year he's going to put his whole season around the Giro on the Tour. But Tony is, even though he is 33, 34 years of age, next year he is relatively young as regards top cyclists is concerned, because he only kind of realised that he was good when he was about 28, 29. So normally he was only a good stage race rider up to 8 days, where he only realised back in 91 that he was actually a rider capable of winning big tours. So mentally and physically he's underdeveloped compared to like Vingegaard. So he also has an incredible mind and a will to win and a will to train. Like he trains like everything is on computer. So he does things very well.
Well, there's some truth in the story too. He used to get hay fever too from Pommel.
That was a big problem. He had a big problem with hay fever, and also he never lasted 8 days of an 8-day stage race. So he always had one bad day. Whereas in the last 3 years now, he's won 3 Tour of Spain on the trot, and had very good Tour, one good Tour de France last year. So I think it's next year he will still have the ability to win the Tour de France.
Well, we're talking about Tony Rominger, who's back down the field, hanging on for grim death, trying to just stay with Indurain, who's dropped him for about 5 or 10 seconds. And now Virenque up in front, going up towards the top of the Col de Tourmalet. This battling Frenchman here for the Festina team, giving the French really something to cheer about. And I was saying earlier on, I just wonder where the new talent was coming from. This man, we thought a couple of years ago, when he took the polka dot jersey in the Tour de France, was going to be a prospect for the future. But he's had his up and down career. I don't mean that just because he goes up and down mountains, but that's been his career pattern so far. But today he's come good on this mountain. He came quite good on the mountain into Hautacom when he finished in 4th place, just 56 seconds down on LeBlanc, as also we've seen. The teammates here for Tony Rominger have dropped back to shelter their team leader. In fact, no, it's just 2 of them, because one of the Gavish Balan riders has dropped off here. The colours are sometimes so similar, and I just looked up and saw it. But Rominger, his face is suffering. In Lake Keith, they picked a picture yesterday of Rominger on the final few metres for the top of the climb, and I've never seen a man looking so shattered in all my life. It captured all his emotions.
You can see Tony here, his face is not actually wrinkled with pain, because when he has the problem he has with his stomach, the problem is you're drained, and you can't actually go right at the end of yourself. It's actually hurt. You're just riding there with a straight face and no pain.
The massive crowd lining the sides of the road up the Col de Tourmalet. 2,115 metres above sea level, and here the yellow jersey safely in that little group. He had been shepherded by most of the Benesto team. He's now just down to 2 men as the rank. Then up in the top there you can see where he's aiming for still. He's got a long way to go really in terms of effort. It zigzags backwards and forwards, and on the hairpin bends it actually rears up quite steeply, so you have to sweep round a bit on the outside rather than try and climb your way and clamber your way up on the inside. We have not yet had a look back at Pantani, so the cameras here picking up the action. We do have 2 cameras, fixed cameras on the top of the hill, which will be able to pick up. Here's Pantani now, so we haven't seen him. He pops up on the screen. We've got 2 cameras up on the top of the hill as well, fixed cameras, and 1 on the way down as well. So you're going to see cracking sights off the cameras here, bringing you Eurosport's coverage of the Tour de France. Pantani trying to claw his way up the climb here, and Virenque is the man in the lead, the one he's after.
Well, Virenque knows at this stage as well that Rominger is not going too well, and neither is Pelas Cuevas, so he keeps going the way he's going. The gap between himself and second place is not going to be too far, so I'm sure this is one thing that he's going for as well. I'm sure he's going for the first 3 places and a possible podium in Paris.
and the gap last time over they came through the bottom of the climb at Sainte-Marie de Campan, 6 minutes 15 seconds between the group that was of 5 men. Rank was with this 5-man group, Cabino, Bolts, Pelliccioli and Dufaux, and they really now have been left all the way down the hill by this fine performance from this young Frenchman here, who's still got some way to go. The crowd begin to part for the motorcycles going through, and fortunately yet he hasn't really got in amongst motorbikes. Unfortunately, the crowd often begin to slow down. Yes, he's getting close to them now, and the police trying to clear a way through, because then you're into all fumes, aren't you, motorbikes? It must be intense to noise the fumes.
It's like a gorilla on the road.
Oh, yes, I saw it too, actually. No, it's a bear. Yes, it's a bear. It's not a real bear, by the way.
No.
I heard it shouting abuse as I went past.
Well, I'm sure some of the riders in the back of the field are having a bad day when they see the bear coming along. They won't know what it is. They say, oh, my time is up. But I've very rarely seen a group so big coming to the top of the Tourmalet. It's a simple sign that Miguel Indurain has decided that the guys in front are no real immediate danger, so there's no point in getting all frustrated about it. I keep the gap down as much as I can. I'm not going to get worried about it. It'll be very interesting to see now. We see Virenque going very, very well, but it'll be interesting to see the gap on the top of the Tourmalet compared to between himself and Pontani, because I just had to say this a few minutes ago, from the bottom of the hill, Pontani was some 6 minutes 10 seconds down on Virenque, so it'll be interesting to see how much he has closed the gap down, if he has closed at all.
And we saw then the Spanish and Basque flags waving. The red, white and green flags of the Basques were much in profusion on that last corner down there, because of course Indurain comes to the Basque territory. But here the French, who outnumber all the other spectators in this their race. This is their race. This is their time to come and see history being made and relive history that has been held in the past on these great roads. There we are, another Basque flag in the background. The Spanish rider Indurain looking for his 4th victory overall in the Tour de France. But Virenque getting close to the summit. The clock will start, and then we'll see what the gap is back to the chasing men, because we haven't seen what's happened to other riders like Cabino, that was with him for a short period before he got blasted out. No Pelliccioli, no Bolts, so they're all now trying to haul their way up this climb with Virenque that did the damage. Only Cabino could stay with him, and he has also been dropped. Pantani trying to collect the other riders on the way up too, so it really has been spread. There's his name on the road, Virenque, as he comes up now to the top to take the special Henri de Grange prize of 50,000 French francs for being the first rider over the top of this classic climb.
I just saw Virenque starting to struggle a little bit going over the top of the hill. It's not only because he's starting to die, but because the last kilometre of the Tourmalet gets very, very hard. But Pontani may have closed a little bit going up the hill on him, but Virenque is a very, very good descender, much better than Pontani. So I just hope that he will not take too much time out of Pontani on the descent, and maybe Pontani might get back to him before the foot of Les Ardennes, and we might see a spectacular fight for the first place between Virenque and Pontani.
And there, our fixed camera picked up the ski lifts, which had taken the masses of spectators up to the top of the climb. All the way down here, there are very few vehicles, very few spectators, and there are some sharp, nasty bends, and down the left-hand side, there's a sheer drop of hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of feet, and you just bounce down right to the bottom. There's just nothing to stop you. It is one of those drops where there are trees, so if you went over the top, you might find yourself in the bushes, as has happened in the Tour de France in the past. This is just one side, a complete drop into eternity almost, as Pantani on his way up the climb.
We have a time check on him now from the top of the hill, but for the moment he still has another kilometre, so maybe more than a kilometre to go to the top, because he must wait and see the road getting wider.
Cabino, we said we hadn't picked him up because he was with Virenque before, but look at the difference he's got. Only about 5 kilometres, he's knocked out over a minute and a half.
Yeah. And Cabino looked so fresh and so strong early on in the climb when he attacked to split the group of 5, which they were at first. Now he's struggling, so I thought he was underestimating Virenque, and I think I was right.
Time for Cabino, looking to be around about 150 down. The green bands on the cars behind show that those are the press men who are recording and noting down the reaction today. He said no, he doesn't want to stick anything up his chest on the way down. He's just happy to go in second place. He has got himself 1,500 francs for that particular performance anyway, so he's got something to go into his wallet when he's finished. But nevertheless, Will he get somebody come up from behind? Here, a bottle coming up from his Calmay team car, and we've still not got over the final line to check
the bottle here. You can see on the left side of the screen his team car handing the bottle. But he doesn't want to take it because he's still going up, you see. As I was saying earlier on, he cannot take a bottle going up, so his team car wants to hand it to him. He knows that he can't take it going up, so here we are now. As he goes over the top, he takes the bottle.
And as he crosses the line then, it was 2 minutes and 40 seconds, yes, on the clock, but they got 2:39, so we'll go with that then, for 2:39 for Cabino on the Tourmalet.
You see Rodriguez now coming through.
In third spot, and you'd have thought, Pelliccioli, yeah.
Let's come back here.
They're flicking the cameras backwards and forwards, and Rodriguez
comes through now.
Next to come.
He's suffering too, you can see he's not very fluid as he was earlier on in the stage. You see how steep now that this actual last 500 metres is. It's very, very steep. When you've been climbing for nearly 20 kilometres, you don't appreciate the final 500 metres going up steeper. As we have Laurent Defoe now coming up, who will be about 4 minutes off the leader, Richard Bernanke.
I just think that these 5 men, well, we've seen so far go over 3, 4, this is the 5th man now. They were all together at the bottom of the climb. They're all together about a third of the way up, and then Vironk attacked with Cabino, and now in that sharp burst of Vironk, he's knocked now over 4 minutes out of Laurent Defoe, the Swiss rider, climbing up here. So many good Swiss climbers in the past, people like Ferdy Kubler and Koblet, but this man, this young rider here, going to cross the line just 4 minutes and 15 seconds in arrears over Vironk.
He didn't look too bad going over the top, though. He just looked worse earlier on when he got dropped, but he's very, very young at the moment and very, very inexperienced. So I always found that I was much the same when I was coming through, that it took you 1 or 2 Tour de France's or 3 or 4 times actually climbing the big mountain before you're able to limit yourself to what you're your best doing. Whereas Defoe, being a very young and immature rider, he's you blow because you haven't got the actual experience, because you haven't got the foundation. But the only way of getting foundation is to keep going the way he is and insisting doing what he's doing. He's already won a Dauphiné Libre twice, so I see him as being a potential Tour de France winner, but maybe not winner, but definitely being in there somewhere in the next 2 or 3 years.
Well, we talked about earlier on in the programme, we've been going to be on air for 4 hours today to viewers back at home, and Steve and I were discussing where the new young talent was coming from, because people like Bunyo, we know, is back in the bus now. Kipucci has had to retire for medical reasons anyway, but nevertheless don't seem to have the sharpness on his older riders that they used to have. Stevens retired, Laurent Fignon retired last year as well, so the new young riders were looking to come through. Udo Boltz, I thought he was going to fall off for a minute then. Udo Boltz swerved a little bit, the Telecom rider going over in 5:29. He was also in that leading group. Pantani.
6 minutes. He hasn't. He's only pulled back about 30 seconds, less than 30 seconds on Vironk in the climb. So it's not a great performance by Pantani.
5:46 Pantani, but the other point is how far back is Indurain then. Pantani, who was not part of that breakaway group, then on his way down the other side of the Tourmalet, heading towards the finish. What's left of the main group, and it's now the yellow jersey here, still third from the front with on his right shoulder, or on the right shoulder, we look at it from here, his left shoulder actually as such, is Zuller, who looks quite composed, but he's done nothing to try and disturb the rhythm at all. The one man who's been struggling most of all has been Romigo, who's been off this one now, and he has slimmed down to no more than about 15 or so riders. So even though the Indurain's ridden at a steady pace, a lot of people have been blown out the back of this group here.
As we see Gerard Ruin now taking over the relay, he was sitting on for the whole day, letting Alonso doing all the work, whereas they're obviously keeping Rouet and possibly Jean-François Bernard. We haven't seen there for a while. I think he could still be in there. waiting just in case Mikael needs them towards the finish.
Ugrimov, I can see in the background there, his bald head bobbing up and down, second in the Tour of Italy last year, and showed already on the climb at Hautacam that he can stay with the best of them. And I think
Luke
also that Punikov is there.
Punikov is there. Luke Leblanc is there as well for the Festina team. He'll probably have a go for the Grand Prix of the Mountains squad, I say. Get more. He'll probably have a go for the Grand Prix of the Mountains squad, I say. Get more points. But I'm just surprised that Ugrimov being there. He hasn't even tried a little bit. Hasn't tried getting away at all from the group.
Perhaps he's waiting for the final climb because unless they're prepared to ease up now, this may be just all that's left of the main group going into the finish at the Sarizén.
Yes, but if Ugrimov wants to get anywhere in the Tour de France, he has to go far. He won't get any major time difference between Indurain and himself going up the last hill. So I felt he would have had to go on this hill. Anybody that had anything in the legs would have had to go on the Tourmalet because they'd only be able to put a short bit of time into Indurain if they wait until the last time.
Fixed camera showing you something of the ascent. You can't really understand how tough it is until you're actually there and you look back down the climb and you can see in the distance the little village they come up for. Thierry Marie still hovering in front of that bunch then, and the main field coming up, what's left of it. There's a lot more riders. When I say main field, there's a lot more down that could make a main field when they regroup, but the yellow jersey group then coming up the climb and heading over the top shortly. But what have we got now? 8:19 back to this little group here.
Well, Patani has put a little over 2 minutes into the group of Indurain, 2.5 minutes maybe into Indurain.
And there it is. There's Indurain at 8:34. One or two riders in between.
2 minutes, 20 seconds or so into Pantani has put into the group of yellow jersey going up. As you have Pascalino going over the last position.
So Festina still with 3 men, well positioned today. Luc Leblanc's in that main group with Pascalino, but their best hope for today is Veronk, who's now well down. We haven't been down the drop with the leader. We've just stayed to see the gaps coming through from behind, but there we have now the chasers.
Jean-Paul Sepernat we have here.
They're going to be coming over here for about the next 15 to 20 minutes minimum on this climb up here, and everybody can have a wonderful sight to see the riders come through, because on the fat stages they whiz through, but on this climb on the Col de Tourmalet, with just off the top 35 kilometres to go to the finish, we're going to take a short break as Veronk heads off towards Lutz Ardiden. Come back to Eurosport in a couple of minutes for more action from the Tour de France. The yellow jersey dropping down the slope, the other side of the Col de Tourmalet. It's a long, drawn-out descent as the rest of the Banesto team, who fought to keep the van in contention, come over there, 1:11:34 down. Lance Armstrong, the world champion, not his ideal sort of climb. You see, he's a very bulky sort of chap round his chest here, and this is a good ride by Lance, so he had to haul himself up there, and he's not built like the mountain goat. So it looks like Broykin coming up behind him as well. That's a disappointing ride for him, but I think Armstrong now over the top. He was 20th this morning on general classification, the Motorola rider, 13 minutes and 36 seconds down on general classification. He's going to lose some more today, but I don't think he's going to get back on that descent, because they'll go like stink to get down and then sharply turn up. Well, whilst we were on the ad break, we saw Bunyo and Rees go, Bjorn Rees together with Bunyo, a little group of riders at 10 minutes and 25 seconds down on Veronk, who collected their 40 points in the King of the Mountains competition and the prize for the Henri de Grange trophy, which he took convincingly well away ahead of the chasers Cabino, and then the rest of the field still coming up, so they're going to be coming over here 20 minutes, perhaps even half an hour down on the main riders that are descending the hill at a great rate of knots down the bottom. Neil Stevens there for the Onse team, his long flowing locks then just sat in this little group of 4 men, and the crowd narrowing down the gap and cheering these giants of the road, because we are looking at 170 or so of the world's greatest racing cyclists. Of course, 1 or 2 who couldn't ride this year, like Jaskula, because their teams didn't qualify on points. points, but generally speaking, the Tour de France brings together the best men in the world. Or people like Fondriest couldn't ride this year because he had an operation on his slip disc, but it just shows you how, as Pantani drops down the other side, that even the best men still struggle when the hammer goes down in the big mountains. Vironk is in the lead. Pantani now, he came over the top in, what was it, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, it's the 7th position at 5:46. He's got some catching up to do, and there's quite a lot of ride between Vironk here in the lead. And
he's asking for a time check.
Yep.
He's asking what time he has, but he can't hear us today. That's a problem. As you go under 25 kilometre to go border.
Yep.
He's getting a time check now from Brunner Wissel, who is his Detta Sportiva, who will tell him the situation, what's going on behind. He will say Rominger has been dropped, De Las Cuevas isn't in the group. He will say that Pantani is having a chase behind you, so he'll be informed of all the boys that are dangerous to him. He'll be informed about them all.
Vironk could be on his way to a classic victory. Keep your fingers crossed, because it's a stomping great descent, and then no sooner you're down the bottom than we start up. Now the sun has come out at Les Ardennes. It's becoming baking hot, and the conditions had been cooler a bit earlier on, but he's going to fry this lad. He's really whizzing the gear around now and absolutely motivated. He's got one idea now, that's to win the stage, and if he does it, that'd be a cracking ride really, but he's got to go some on the descent, hasn't he?
He has. Vironk is a very, very good descender anyway. Like, he's very, very much into motorbikes in the winter. He does a lot of trials riding and cross-country motorcycling, so he's a very, very good descender, which this is possibly not too good for Pantani, because Pantani being very light and not being a great descender, and the 30 seconds or 40 seconds that he's gaining on Vironk going up the hill, he will lose it going down. So but still, it's no mean feat by Vironk if he does win the stage.
Quick flash on our screen then of 76 kilometres per hour of the motorcycle speed alongside Vironk. 80 kilometres per hour is 50 miles an hour, so he's descending here just a sniff under 50 miles an hour on a bicycle with thin wheels, and this fellow here just rocketing down at a tremendous rate of knots, and he knows ahead there are twists and turns. He's got to just eyes down the road, make sure you don't go too fast in the bend, just a light touch on the brakes, not too much to slow the bike down so you lose time. Clipping the inside of the corner, taking the apex, straightening the bike up, still pedaling like Sting. He's certainly not hanging about waiting for anybody today.
No, Vironk is a very very strong morally. Like, he's looking at the cameras and look at me, I'm here, and how far is the guys behind me. He's a real showman. Like, he's a child, really, a child with in a man's body. You know, he never shuts up.
Well, he's giving us something here to shout about today as the time check's coming up to him and encouragement being hurled at him.
Bernard Valley.
Yep.
Bernard Valley is giving him actually Bernard Valley won the Grand Prix of the Mountains prize here back in 1986, 87, I think it was. Bernard Valley won the Mountains classification here and finished well up in the general classification. So Richard Vironk would be a kind of a rider in his same category, because Richard Vironk is also going for the Grand Prix of the Mountains prize.
Well, he'll never be short of advice, and I think, because the last count I had, there are 77 riders or ex-riders who are working on the Tour de France this year. 77 ex-riders, including, of course, my good friend here, Stephen Roche, and Laurent Fignon. But the list is an absolute roll call of honour, and they're going to try and get a photograph somewhere, aren't they, with you all together?
They've asked for us to go along to a podium at some stage in the race, but it's trying to find a podium as big, I think. They didn't realise how many ex-riders were on the race until they actually started. They put a list out with maybe 35 riders, 35 names, and said, but on the end of it, they said, well, any of you riders we've forgotten about, please let us know and we will count you in. And unfortunately, everybody saw this thing, and it's been a rush now by all the riders, and I'm here, and he's here, and now they have over 70 odd names down, so it's
and winners like
nobody would ever realise.
Winners like yourself, Fignon, Hino, Thévenet, are all on the race, aren't they?
Yeah, Poulidor never won it yet. Poulidor was there.
No. And also, I see some of the great Italians like Gemignani is about the place too.
Yeah, Gemignani was there. There's Adorni. There's a lot of Italian top ex-cyclists here.
And if we saw Bartali, he's actually on the race, but he came out at one day.
81 years of age he is, and he came along to a meeting the other night there. He drives himself, he does everything himself, he's a great man. So just goes to show you what cycling can do for you.
And of course, the amazing about both Bartali and Coppi, their careers were broken by the war when for 4 years they weren't racing, but their successes that both of them did over the years was really set the scene for after the war, the 1950s, when cycle racing got back on its feet again, when professionalism wasn't as we know it now. There were just maybe single sponsors of the teams, and they didn't race for a lot of money, but they loved cycle racing, and they really established the sport after the war. That people like Bartali and Coppi and the rest of them, and now we've got this Pantani here, right over the back of the saddle. That's a bit painful.
It's a very stupid position, because you can imagine he punctured in the front wheel or something happened, the handlebars turned around or whatever, he'd be down, he'd be gone.
If he sits a bit further down, there'll be smell of burning bottom.
It would, yeah, but it's not a very good position. There are better positions that have to go as fast than going down like that. You can imagine anything at all happens, he goes backwards and down and hits head off the ground. His feet are strapped into the pedals. There's no way they come off the pedals, so it's very, very stupid position he has. I advise any young lads watching it not to do it. Not to do it. Strictly.
Also, isn't it bad for his muscles, because he's pulled back on his arms, isn't he? And his legs are down. It must be cramping.
Pull back on his legs, but pull back on his arms, but also the legs. They're not being flexed enough, so it's not. He's standing on his legs really, so it's not
restful, is it?
No way a good position.
Yeah.
Do it for a minute going down a hill, but not.
Did you tell him the other day about changing behind the car? And he should have got in front.
No, I didn't.
You've got two things to tell him now. One about descending, one about changing the wheel.
He don't like going back to a rider like that and trying to tell him different things, because he's the rider's going to feel, well, who's your man? Like, his day is finished. Like, what's he trying to tell me? Things about riding a bike. So I don't like really talking so much to riders about what they've done wrong or everything else. I talk about it jokingly, maybe when we're having dinner or something, when someone else has brought it up maybe. But I don't like going in and talking about it straight out.
Well, this man who was a great amateur cyclist in the Amateur Tour of Italy, he had a first place, a second place and a third place in the Amateur Tour of Italy, and burst upon the scene, that little fellow at the front, Pantani, with those two wonderful stage victories in the Tour of Italy, which took him into second place. And certainly when he did that, people were saying, Pantani, who's he, who's he? And we had to go rushing back to the books, because the amateurs aren't always, their performances aren't always written up in the books that people have, but they suddenly discovered who they got going so well, and here he is now, hammering down this hill in his most unusual position and helping himself to a bottle in the process as well. So he's determined to try and cut that gap. The last time check we had, he was 5 minutes 46 seconds down on Vironk. He swept up Bolts, who was just some 20 seconds in front of him on the descent. So he certainly caught Bolts on the descent. So that's something, because Udo's quite a big fellow when it comes to dropping down, and the big fellows have that little bit of advantage.
But Bolts would have been trying to recover as well on the descent, because he was, after getting dropped going up the Tourmalet, he knows that going up the Les Ardennes is not going to be any easier. So he would have been trying to recover and waiting for somebody to come along to him to ride to the end with him, and possibly someone that he can hang on to going up the Les Ardennes. I know that Pantani will be no mean feat holding onto his wheel going up the Les Ardennes, but this helps him gain time all the time.
And the 20 kilometres to go banner has now been passed by Vironk, and the final climb of the day lies ahead of him. 13.5 kilometres of climbing.
There's another position for you. Look at Bolts. Bolts' position is not two different things altogether. It's amazing.
One over the front, one over the back. Well,
one is as dangerous as the other. You see Bolts going down the wheel with his hands on top of the handlebars. If he hits a small stone or something happens, wherever it might be, he's no control of his bike.
Actually, when I came across this bit of it, they seem to relay the tarmac recently, so they probably decided it's almost brand new tarmac. They'll take a chance and fly down
this. There could be a small stone, there could be come around a corner, there could be a dog there, there could be a kid there, there could be anything at all. Oil, gravel, sand, anything at all could be there. And when you're in a position like this, you've no escape.
Yeah, you're right about the bumps. Here we go. And actually, through this little village, I think they've got some of those sleeping policemen there. They're certainly going to bounce you all over the place.
David, you better explain what a sleeping policeman is to our public.
It's a little lump in the road they put down to stop the cars going too fast. Yeah, it's not a gendarme, having had too much lunch.
Well, actually, what they call him in French is gendarme couché. It's gendarme asleep, sleeping gendarme. The same thing, like, but you got to be careful when you talk about gendarmes these days after our unfortunate first crash in Armagh, where gendarme unfortunately was not sleeping. He was standing on the side of the road and taking a photograph. But it's a very unusual expression to use for a ramp, which we would call it in simple English, on the road.
Well, I think it's because it's like a policeman. If he stands out in front of you, you're going too fast through a town, you automatically slow down in case you've got a zap gun, you see.
That's exactly what it is, Dave. That's the reason why.
Well, those riders have bounced their way over that, and also they've had to manoeuvre their bikes around obstructions. It's amazing some of the towns you go through now. They take up the central islands and take out the posts in the centre, so the riders can have a free passage through, and then have to relay the whole lot after. I know that happened in England to quite a great deal. The street furniture, we call it, having to be moved, so the Tour de France had a free passage. But in the mountains, it's every man for himself now. And on the climb up to Lutz Ardiden, when you get close to this one, this man Virenque, his name will be on everybody's lips, because they got their portable television sets out on the side of the road. They've got their radios going, and they know now who is in the lead. So the tremendous number of French people out here, the vast majority of them will be cheering, but by the same token, the Spaniards will know that the tactics of Miguel Indurain today will have kept him in the yellow jersey, and the flag will be waving as he goes further up the slope for the man who's wearing yellow jersey and looks like well set for his 4th victory in the Tour de France. But you never know, these mountain climbers today have been opening up quite sensible time bonuses, and this man Virenque still will climb himself up the general classification this morning. 15 minutes and 38 seconds down in 29th place, and he went over the top of the last climb, 8 minutes and 34 seconds down on Indurain. So if this gap still persists to the end, he's going to really jump up the general classification, and that'll be a good move then for the Festina rider, because already they've got up there in 5th spot on general classification. Luc Leblanc, 8:35 down.
Like he is going for silver, going very strong behind. I thought he might have died a little bit towards the end, but it seems to be going very, very strong. But you must take into consideration that the actual hill itself of Lutz Ardiden hasn't actually started yet. This is all of a falls flat going on through the valley. It's only when in about 3 or 4 kilometres he'll be turning left that he'll be actually hitting the foot of the actual climb of Lutz Ardiden.
Bolts and Pantani. Pantani on the left, Udo Bolts. You couldn't get more disparate sizes here. Great big fellow Bolts. He must be just on the 6th foot. And little Pantani.
Pantani's not going well either. You can see how he's not his normal supple self. He's not.
He's on the flat part though, because I remember in the Tour of Italy again, he went away on one of the climbs with Bonahera, and they
13 kilometres to the finish, to the Grand Prix of the Mountains.
And he was okay when the climbing bit. When he came down to the flat bit, he just sat up and let Bonahera go away, because he didn't seem to be too happy with the flat riding. But he's taking off his
this is actually, it's not flat, it's not mountain here, but Pantani has a job to do here, and he has a task in his hands to do. He has to try and get a stage win, of course, but he has to put Miguel Indurain in difficulty. But he's riding along here in the big chain ring, so it's not you know yourself, it's not an actual steep hill, because he wouldn't be going on it in the big chain ring if he was. But he's not as cool or as fast looking as we are used to seeing him from the Tour of Italy. So things are obviously not going too well for him today.
That's the man we're talking about from the Carrera Blue Jeans team, Pantani and Udo Bolts, doing a very good ride indeed here. Bolts, he was lying 37th on general classification this morning, 18 minutes and 3 seconds down. Let me remind you then of what has happened during the day as we get towards the back end of this stage. The stage which has taken the riders 195 kilometres from Lourdes to Lutz Ardiden. The course actually leaving Lourdes this morning went out in a easterly direction for about 80 kilometres, and then it's turned south for a short while and then cut back in again now, and the riders heading in towards Lutz Ardiden. It's like a squash U-shape, the 159 kilometres today on the 12th stage of the Tour. And here we got Pantani and Bolts beginning to catch up with Dufaux, who was one of the breakaway group that went away a lot further down the road. In fact, all the action this morning started at the 32-kilometre mark when Virenque and Camargo and Herb and Torres went over the first climb of the day. As they collect to Dufaux now, it looks like he's happy to get the back wheel of Udo Bolts, but we're still not on the real steep part of the climb, but that'll give him a little bit of respite at the moment. So continuing the story then, that at the Côte de Mureșan, Virenque, Camargo, Herb, de Klerk and Torres went over the top of that one. On the way down the other side, Torres took off. He attacked after 32 kilometres had been covered, and he went away on his own, and he built up a gap at one time of some 7 minutes and 15 seconds. But a chasing group of Cabino, Virenque, Bolts, Pellicoli, Dufaux set after him and caught him, and now they... In this group then, Indurain chasing after what has been left of that 5-man breakaway group that went in hot pursuit of Torres. Torres got himself caught by the group and then shelled out the back and will be hanging on for grim death now. And has went over the top of the Tourmalet. Veronk it was that took that one. Veronk had already romped up over the top of the Peresard, but he couldn't beat the man in the lead, Torres. Torres took that one, and then Veronk came over in second place to Clerc and LeBlanc after that. So now LeBlanc is in this little group here. We've got a nice little group going together. The order on the road at the moment is Veronk in the lead, then Cabino, Pellicoli, Rodriguez. Jufo's just been swept up by Bolts and Pantani. This is the main group. We've had Rominger suffering somewhat, and my co-commentator here, Stephen Rose, has been desperately looking through the group here to see if he can spot Rominger. Is he there, Stephen?
No, I haven't seen him for the moment. He has a couple of teammates in there, okay, but I haven't seen. No, that's not Rominger.
No, that's Mutter. I was pointing out he's there.
Yeah, Mutter's there. Yeah, Mutter's having a great ride. Yeah. But we don't know where Rominger is. Normally I would have thought that his teammates would have waited for him, but possibly 2 or 3 of them have done, and he sent the other lads on to make sure that at least his own team and his sponsor is represented in the front group. But going back to the Tour of Spain in 1992, we had a detour in France for Tour of Spain. Sometimes the Tour de France goes to Belgium or to England, for example, as in this year, and we made this the exact same stage, and I was in the front group starting the foot of Luzardeden, and I blew a gasket and lost 9 minutes to the front group.
No.
9 minutes going
13 kilometres.
Yeah, from the bottom to the top.
Yeah, but the seat bit didn't all 13 kilometres. The seat bit's about the last 9.
I lost 9 minutes altogether going up.
No.
So, you know, anything can happen on a hill like this.
I seem to remember remembering that one. You were up there for quite a bit, and suddenly went I'm backwards, like you were going backwards rather than forwards. Yeah. Now, the reason Mapei class I think are up there at the moment, leaving those riders in, Stephen, is that they're leading on the general classification of the team. You see, just 155 hours, 45 minutes, 59 ahead of Benesto, who are just a couple of incidents behind. So perhaps they're trying to stay in contention for the team award.
No, they will be, because they were obviously putting all their money on Rominger for the overall classification early on, whereas now they realise that Rominger will be out of the general classification, so they've got to get something out of the Tour de France so that they can be spoken about. So if they're leading the team classification and they can hold on to it, Perico, if they're leading the general classification for the team classification, at least they will guarantee a podium in Paris and a lot of publicity for the team. As we all know, that's the name of the game.
Well, that was the 10 kilometre to go banner that Veronk went under. So over the bridge of Napoleon III, the chasing group now setting in hot pursuit of Veronk, and we've got the watches running to see what the lead is going to be for this man Veronk, with the chasing group coming up to him rapidly indeed. Veronk on his way up towards the finish. The chase is on with the Benesto team now, realising that Veronk, who's in the lead on the climb up to the Lutz Ardiden finish, 1,715 metres above sea level. He's gone through the 10 kilometre to go board, has Veronk. Veronk, who started out this morning in 29th place, 15 minutes and 38 seconds down, is clawing back the deficit on the man in the yellow jersey, Miguel Indurain, who spent all day keeping his eyes on Rominger, who's been blown out on the climb of the Col de Tourmalet. This man here in the pink and white for Telecom, Udo Bolts, went over well on the Tourmalet. He was off the back a little bit from the group he was with before, but Pantani, who caught him, has dropped him now, and Bolts then beginning to struggle. Looking up the road here, Pantani, the revelation of the Tour of Italy when he took second place yesterday. On the rest day, he was recovering from a very good ride the day before when he tried to win the stage into Hautacom, but had to give best to LeBlanc, who took first, Indurain second, Pantani had to be in third spot. He's now going after Veronk, but he left it rather late when he went away on the Tourmalet. The breakaway group then this morning really started when Veronk went over the 32 kilometre point in first spot. The first climb of the day, a mere third category climb with Camargo, Herve, de Klerk and Torres. Torres went away just after that 32 kilometres, and Torres was in the lead for something like about 50 miles. Eventually he got swept up after going over the Aspin climb. Torres went over there and took the first big climb of the day, the Col d'Aspin. him, because we've got, second climb, Col de Peyresourde. He took that one, the Col d'Aspin, and then this group came up to him. That group then are Virenque, Cubino, Pelliccioli, Rodriguez, Dufo, Bolts, and then Pantani's come up and he's sweeping up one at a time. At the moment, we have the best of our knowledge on the road. This man you're looking at now, Virenque, inside 10 kilometres to go. Cubino is behind him somewhere. Pelliccioli is behind him somewhere. Dufo has been caught by Bolts and Pantani. So really, Pantani now looks like he's moved up into 1, 2, 3, into probably 4th place at the moment. Rodriguez probably 4th and Pantani probably 5th. But the gaps then, when they went over the Tourmalet, was quite considerable. Virenque went over 2 minutes and 30-odd seconds ahead of Cubino, with Pelliccioli close behind him. Rodriguez was 3 minutes and 28. Dufo 4:15. Bolts 5:29. Pantani 5:46. But Pantani's coming now to try and get this man, sweeping up the riders as they start this climb. It'll be touch and go. Has he left it too late? Indurain behind then has just realised, with Pantani and Virenque having a good go at the front, he could lose some valuable time. But we've got a cracking day's racing yet again. Stephen Roche, my co-commentator, we've been going flat out for 4 hours since the start. The gap then 5:53 to Pantani. Over the top of the Tourmalet, my notes here, it was 5:46. So Virenque, in fact, is going away from Pantani.
Yeah, well, I thought he would have been, because Virenque is a much better descender than Pantani. But if Virenque keeps going the way he's going well today, he really will. I doubt if Pantani can get him back. But after winning being up there in the Tourmalet, Grand Prix des Mountains, and also in the Aspin, I think he will be should be very, very close to the overall Grand Prix des Mountains, the polka dot jersey. But Pantani is also there. Luc Leblanc also got points, so it'll be. I have to make a quick calculation after the stage to see who's who and what the movements are. But I'm sure I don't think that Peter de Klerk will hold his jersey for one more day.
And today they're also racing for a special prize of 50,000 French francs. That's about £6,000 for the points on the Col de Peyresourde, the Col d'Aspin, the Col de Tourmalet, and the Monte de Lutz Ardiden. That is in memory of Louis Ocana, who unfortunately committed suicide just a few weeks ago. He was suffering with illness and business problems, but now, as Pantani heads towards this one, it looks like Virenque might get that special souvenir. And on my watch now, it is 5 minutes and 37 seconds back to Pantani from Virenque in the front. So there's no doubt about it, Virenque's doing a wonderful job holding Pantani, who's the only one who seems to be accelerating.
He is. He's holding them off very, very well. Like, Virenque is the kind of a guy who is known to be a bit of a loner, who goes in long breaks and does suicide things. Sometimes it works, other times it doesn't work. This is one time it works, and lucky for him, it's working on one of the best stages of the Tour de France of this year.
And these riders then, they've started to regroup. 1 or 2 have caught up on the descent of the Tourmalet. Their sleep, I'm sure, was disturbed last night. It was the 14th of July when we were in Lourdes for the rest day. And I don't know if you heard them, Stephen, but they had an enormous, I saw them, the enormous firework display, the rockets going off, right till about 11 o'clock, and bang, bang, bang. I think the poor riders who've gone to bed early would probably have been absolutely floored by the noise that was going on last night.
Well, they were, because they were just behind my hotel, so I didn't only see them, I heard them as well. But going back to our picture here again, we see Zule is always on Michael Indurain's wheel, with Luc Leblanc here on the left-hand side as well. I wouldn't be surprised if Luc didn't try something between now and the end. As you see, Jean-Francois Bernard, after getting back on after the long descent off the Tourmalet, he's gotten back on and now riding in the front with Michael. But I've never ever seen a group as big as this starting on the foot of Lutz Ardiden. Normally it's a group of 10, 11 riders, but I've never seen a group as big as this, meaning that there hasn't been much of a fight in this group, and simple reason being that Tony Rominger isn't the best because of illness. Capucci is gone because of illness, and De Las Cuevas, I haven't seen him in there, but he was reported ill last night and this morning as well. He's in the race, so is Rominger. Capucci unfortunately couldn't be here. He's gone home because he was very, very sick during the last day's racing, plus the rest day of yesterday. But the lads now are, the riders now just keep a good tempo in the front. There's no real reason to chase down Pantani.
And Virenque then looks like he might get the prize for Louis Ocana, in memory of him. Louis Ocana, who won the Tour in 1973, and many of us on the race have purchased a nice bottle of Armagnac, because he had a vineyard in Gers, not far away from here, as a souvenir in memory of that great rider. Another great rider here in the midst of this little group, by the way, is Miguel Indurain, looking probably now for his 4th victory in the Tour de France. But if they let too many of these mountain climbers leap away, then things will be difficult. He's not at the moment being attacked by people like Zula on the right-hand side here, who one time is going to be the big white hope of the future to dominate the race. It's Indurain really that's had all the aces in his hand, but Esso team have worked very hard indeed. And I'm actually interested to see that Bjorn Ries has got up there now, because he went over the top of the Tourmalet. I'm just checking my notes here. 10:25 with Bunyo, and that Indurain went over in 8:34. So Bunyo and Ries have caught 2 minutes up. So either whether Indurain slow that amount or 6 of one, half dozen the other, we'll soon know when we go through the 10-kilometre go mark. But Bunyo and Ries have, or certainly Ries has got back.
Well, Ries probably made a great descent. Like the group of Indurainers in, they're not actually riding flat out. They're riding a nice tempo, but they're not riding flat out. So Ries, being behind, I'm sure, wanted to get back onto the front group. So he rode his eyeballs out on the descent, made a great descent. And as you can see from our screens earlier on there, he got back onto the group. But mainly because the group in front were not riding flat out. There's no reason to ride flat out, because Pontani and Vihanka are so far down on general classification, and also Romeo is gone, the Escrivas is gone, so there's no real reason to ride flat out. All you got to do is keep a good tempo.
Well, this man here, Vihanka, went away on the climb up the Col de Tourmalet. We had then something like about 40 kilometres to go to finish, 25 miles when this man attacked. He's still out there in the lead. He's got something like 7 kilometres to go, just under 5 miles left as far as he's concerned to go up here. So he's done some 20 miles on his own. That's including going on the Col de Tourmalet and taking the special prize in memory of Arnaud Grange, who founded the Tour de France way back in 1903. And now he's on his way up to Lutz Ardiden to finish 1,715 metres above sea level after 204 kilometres of racing on this, the day after rest day. And there'll be some riders further down the back absolutely grovelling because the pace has not let up all day long.
The pace has been very, very difficult, even though the riders have been in the front. They are not dangerous in general classification. Indurain's team have kept a nice tempo on all day. As we've seen, Jean-François Bernard has now come back into the picture, and he's going to make a tempo right up to the finish, trying to hold off any attacks. But anybody that attacks now is already well down in general classification, so it's not a major threat to Indurain anyway.
Well, the strong men here, Jean-François Bernard, been round a few years, Briala Roux been round a few years, Indurain likewise, but Vihanka is in the young riders competition. He started out in 6th place this morning, so the young riders throwing down the gauntlet. Pantani, who's away up there trying to get away, is also in the young riders competition. He's lying 5th overall, Vihanka 6th, so they're going to move up quite a bit. And it's good to see the youngsters now having a crack and prepared to have a go rather than just sitting in the bunch and waiting for something to happen. But has he gauged it right? Further on up here, it opens out onto the bare mountainside. He's beginning now to have to use the pedals to dance out of the saddle, and he'll just be searching down here now. And Pantani has not done anything to reduce that deficit at all. What all Pantani's been doing, he picked up Bolts, he caught him, he caught Dufaux, and Rodriguez and Pelliccioli and Cubino are somewhere up in front of him. We keep coming back to this man because he's a great climber, finished 2nd in the Tour of Italy, but still don't forget, between this man Vihanka and the fellow we just seen, there are Cubino from the Kelme team, Pelliccioli from the Polti team, and Rodriguez, the Colombian, from the ZG team.
Vihanka is having a bit of a rough patch at the moment, but it is very, very steep hill. This also is not a first category hill, it's an R category hill, so R category once again is more than the first category, so it's undescribable. So they put an R category on, they call it HC, and so it's quite normal that he is having a bit of a rough time at the moment, because the Tourmalet is also an R category hill as well.
Well, it'd be indescribable as far as he's concerned. I'm sorry, the other people are concerned. As far as he's concerned, it's going to be the greatest day in his life, I suppose.
Oh, definitely. This will be the best day of his life, and he isn't that old at the moment, but he may have more better days. But he's definitely shown now that the training he has done through the winter is paying off now.
Well, he's been going over the big mountain climbs that are etched in the history of the Tour de France. The Perrosord, where we've been over 48 times. The Aspen, where we've been over 58 times. But the record of all the climbs in the Tour de France was the Tourmalet, where we've been over 65 times. There's been 4 finishes here at Lutz Ardiden. Delgado in 1985 was come here to join Spanish television to commentate for them today, we understand. Dagotto Lauritsen won in 1987. Well, Dagotto Lauritsen is the oldest man in the race. He's 38 years of age. He's further down the field at the moment. I saw him sometime back in what they call the bus. Cubino, who's wedged between Pantani and the leader at the moment. Veronk won in 1988 and Indurain won here in 1990. Stephen.
At 10 kilometres to go, Kubino was 4 minutes and 12 seconds down on the rank with Rodriguez and Pelliculi. And Pontani was down to 5 minutes 35 seconds. So Pontani is coming back, but very, very slowly.
The gap at 10 kilometres ago was 9 minutes 20 seconds between the leader Veronk and the yellow jersey. So a tremendous ride by Veronk, who's now really leaping up the general classification. Steve, you spotted somebody there.
I just saw De Las Cuevas in the group. So De Las Cuevas means he will jump over Rominger. If Rominger is not there, I haven't seen Rominger in there. It'll depend on how much time he loses, but De Las Cuevas could now find himself up now in second place overall.
And the troubles then with Rominger, with his bad day he had before the rest day. I see Luc Leblanc is still in there, number 91, the yellow jersey, still in there at the moment for Miguel Indurain. Also there for the Lamprey team, I can see Pavel Tonkov, another of the young riders, just over there, 71. So here, there is Rominger, isn't it? He's way down and struggling. Oh, what a shame.
It's very unfortunate to see him on his own, though, because he's an incredible champion. And he has a teammate with him, yeah.
But he looks like he's collected one of the Nestos as well.
Yeah, trying to hold on to him, yeah.
And he's not that far behind him.
No. Which group is that? Which group is that, though, Dave? Is that the leading group, or is it
they're all over the place, aren't they?
Or is the peloton? I don't know.
Well, De Las Cuevas there in the Castorama colours, just behind Leblanc. Looks like he's struggling somewhat. Another useful good ride here too by Bjorn Ries, but this is Rodriguez here, and that's Kubino in front. Yeah, so Rodriguez is about to get up to Kubino, and the Colombians upstairs, I think they've gone off air at the moment. They come back on now, they'll go bananas about this one, as he's clawing his way back up. He's concentrating on Kubino, who's won stages in the Pyrenees in the past, and now Rominger might well be coming back. He's fighting his way. What guts this man's got after his bad day. And yesterday, Stephen, what did he do yesterday?
Yesterday he was very much like Capucci. He stayed in bed most of the day, and in the afternoon then he went out in the 30 kilometres, which is normally very little for Rominger, because Rominger would normally have done about 80 kilometres and really had a good go. But yesterday, because he was being so ill, he did 30 kilometres and hoped to keep the energy for today. But as we can see, unfortunately, he has not recovered 100%. But still, to be there on the final hill after going over the Col de Périsseur, the Col d'Aspin, and the Col de Tourmalet, to be there still with not too far from the group of Indurain, it's a very, very good achievement.
And his wife's come down to see him too, hasn't she?
Well, his wife is normally with him all the time, and most of the time, but this year she had a baby about 2 months ago, so she's been staying at home. And Tony rang her the other night after the finish in Lourdes, and she sent us like an SOS, said, listen, love, I need you, I'm in a bad way. So she came down, drove through the night from Monte Carlo down to Lourdes, and brought Tommy, tried to bring Tommy a miracle, but unfortunately the miracle hasn't actually happened. It's in the emotion, but it hasn't actually paid off for the moment.
And the revelation of the tour so far, there the Basque flags, so the Spanish flags are being waved at Veronk, but as Pantani fights his way back, he can see in front of him Rodriguez, he can see Kubino to get the camera out of the way.
He's dying also.
Yeah. See that bloke with the camera? The other day, last year, Zilla hit a bloke with the camera, didn't he? And fetched him off. I mean, they stepped right out in front of somebody, apart from the police, but even the down public do it.
Pantani's dying now as well, so it's... You see the lads here after doing the almost 200 kilometres with these 4 mountain climbs. There's no one's better than the other. It's the survival of the fittest now, and the guy who has the most guts survives.
Well, Pantani finished third on the stage into Hautacani, attacked at the bottom of the climb. He's now pulled back Rodriguez. He's pulling back Kubino, whilst back here, this is what's left of the main group. The yellow jersey group has dislodged Rominger yet again, who's really trying hard with his teammate to stay in contention and lose as little time as possible, because this morning on general classification, Tony Rominger, the Mapei rider, the Swiss man, was in second spot, 4 minutes and 47 seconds down. Armand de las Cuevas, who's in that group as well, was third overall, 5:36 down. We have Petr Ugrumov, who seems to be dropped. I don't think I've seen Petr Ugrumov in there. Was in 4th place this morning, 8:32. Luc Leblanc's in that group at 8:35 on general classification this morning. Bjorn Rees also in that group, 8:59 this morning. Bortolami seems to be dropped. Alano seems to be dropped. Dave has been dropped. So the general classification for the top 10 is going to be absolutely changed, turned upside down by the climbers in this, the toughest stage of the Tour de France so far. 4 massive climbs: the Col de Peyresourde, the Col de Aspin, the Col de Tourmalet, and the finish up Lutz Ardiden, and this is the man that's done the damage. 4 kilometres to go.
Well, we were expecting today to be a day of fireworks, the day after the 14th of July, where the fireworks were last night in the streets, but we were expecting the riders to put fireworks today, and we have not been disappointed. We saw Virenque, we saw Thierry Marley earlier on, we saw anybody that was anybody having a go, and it's great to see. There's great animation in the race now, and Virenque now is coming out on top, of course, but you need somebody to come out on top. But when you see the face of the other riders, Kubinos and Rodriguez and the rest of the lads, nobody has had a handy day today.
The pain, the suffering, the drama of the Tour de France all being fought out today, but the man who's been dominating it since he won the time trial a few days ago, Indurain, is still there, and now 4 kilometres to go for Virenque.
We saw Jean-François Bernard going at the back there a minute ago, so it'll be interesting to see who is left now to ride on the front of the group for Miguel, because I didn't see very many Van Estel riders there in that group. I thought I saw Rouet was still. Here's Ugrumov now.
Yeah.
Is he in the front? He's in the front, is he?
Let's have a look. He's got the
no,
he's been dropped.
Behind, he dropped, yeah.
They're all beginning to suffer now. Yep.
Pascal Hervé for the Festina team having a brilliant day as well, because he's only 30 years of age, but he's only a new professional for the last 2 years, and he's having his first Tour de France. So it's great to see him putting in a great ride here, as we can vaguely see the front group here, and who is actually in it helping Indurain. Is Indurain riding on his own?
Well, a couple of the Kelmy riders at the back here at the moment, and just up there is Zula nodding his head from side to side. Then Armand de las Cuevas in there. So they've still got a long way to go, and the hard effort beginning to show on the faces of these riders. Bobbing around there, that's Angel Camargo, 175. 177 alongside him is Garcia Camacho, one from Spain and one from Colombia. But it's Indurain who's now got to do the work himself. He really is beginning to accelerate. He realises that that man up in front, Virenque, has got quite a big lead, and still down there, see Pulnikov in the career colours coming up to front. There, Luc Leblanc is taking his wheel, and it looks like Tom up there. Oh, he's suffering.
Yeah, he's gone. He will lose a lot of time. He will lose some time, because still 4 kilometres to go, and he doesn't seem to be very fresh at all.
But he's been another man that's been sick, doesn't he?
He has an angina at the moment. He is very sick yesterday, taking antibiotics, and this morning, of course, he was suffering. So it's not unusual to see him suffering on the hill today.
What a race we've had today. Just imagine this morning we had 4 non-starters, including Claudia Chiappucci, from the field of 173 that we got in across the line at Hautacom the day before the rest day. So we're now down to 169 riders, and all we've got left here at the front is just a mere handful of the strong men in the Tour de France. They're going to be coming in perhaps half an hour down on these star climbers. This is where the Tour is fought out. All across the years there's been big battles in the mountains, and we're seeing another one today. There's been no let-up since that breakaway group of 5 men swept up Torres after being away for some 50 miles, and since then have been going hammer and tongs all the way along the road. There, Pavel Tonkov for Lampre, one of the other young riders in the competition. Good to see these young riders up there.
We see here on the right here, I think it's Thomas Davy, we see the Castorama team. He's down at general classification, but he has a sense, he's looking around here now, he's looking back to Armand de las Cuevas, and he's waiting for him. He will try and help him along then to lose as little time possible going to the top. As you see Cyril Guimard here having a talk to las Cuevas and trying to kind of combine something so that he will not be able to not lose too much time before the finish.
Well, Thomas Davy, 9th on general classification, 9 minutes 46 seconds down this morning. De las Cuevas in 3rd spot at 8 minutes and 32. In fact, Thomas Davy had to do the same thing on the Tour of Italy. They actually stopped him at the top, Thomas Davy, turned round his bike, looked to wait for De las Cuevas to come up. So that young rider is very promising. He's got the capability, but he's doing a lot of teamwork.
It is, but you have to pass. Everybody has to go down that road. If you remember a few years ago, Delgado. Indurain was always riding for Perico Delgado, and then eventually then he kind of surpassed them. Then we're the very same thing at the moment. Thomas Davey, nobody knows him. We don't know what kind of a value he is. Is he a sure value? Is he going to be here today on tomorrow? Nobody knows. But we all know that De La Escueva is the second overall. He will do a great time trial next week in Cluj Avoriaz. So you're better off putting your cards on the De La Escuevas. You're better off, as they say, the devil you know is better than the devil you don't know.
And the devil we know is in yellow at the front. The little devil Kipuchi's out, but the devil everybody knows in the yellow jersey. Big Mig is up here now, pulling along this little string of 2-7 behind him, with Pulnikov and Luc Leblanc behind him. Luc Leblanc this morning, 5th overall in general classification, 8.35, and Pulnikov back in 11th spot, 11.30. So we're going to get quite a shuttling of the cards at the end of this fearsome stage, finishing tonight, or this afternoon, 1,750 metres above sea level at the ski station of Lutz Ardiden.
Indurain was, he has this particularity about him. When he comes out of a corner, he sprints out of the corner and sits in the saddle, and before he sits in the saddle again, he lets a freewheel, so you get the impression he's going to attack. But the problem is, you go after him so fast, when you get him to him, he sits up like you're going, woof, and you're making an effort for nothing like.
Be careful you don't run into his back wheel.
Yeah, that has happened also.
Pantani here has swept up the people in front of him. I know he's swept up...
set of goals, he's swept up Capino, he's Rodriguez.
Well, is this Pellicoli now?
Yeah.
We haven't seen Pellicoli, so Pellicoli actually went past Cabino, so he's got Pellicoli yet to go, so he could be heading in for a second place if he can get this Italian up in front from the Polti team, who's ridden a very good race all the way up here, because we hadn't seen much of him once the thing split. He came over the top of the Tourmalet in 3rd spot. He's now obviously past Cabino, and 5.39 back to Pantani. That's still a tremendous gap back to Indurain then, isn't it?
It is, yeah. But
we're waiting for official check on
that. Coming down very quickly.
Waiting for a time. The last time check we had back to Indurain was something like about 9 minutes, Steve, wasn't it? Right down there. There the Basque flags, the white cross, the green cross, and the red background of the Basques here out in profusion. There's loads of them further on up. They'll be certainly applauding a valiant effort from Vironk to win the stage, but they'll know, look, in general classification, he's no great threat today to Indurain, but he's certainly going to be a man they'll have to watch out for, because Vironk here has really probably put another, at the moment, about 9 minutes between himself and Indurain in the yellow jersey. But Indurain quite capable of pulling some of that distance back on the final climb up here. And we see the Basque flags under the Coca-Cola 2 kilometre to go sign as well. They're everywhere you look. We're on the edge of the Pyrenees. The Pyrenees which separates Spain from France, that great line of mountains. And the High Pyrenees here, the place where we're battling out this race today. They are massive towering mountains, start in the Basque foothills and then goes over to Mediterranean, then comes right across towards the Perpignan. So here we have the crowd of spectators from the Basque land cheering on a Frenchman, but they're waiting for the sight of the yellow jersey on the shoulder of Miguel Indurain to come in. And now zipping up his jersey, coming in towards the final kilometre of the race. A tremendous performance today by Vironk.
It is. He's been away for some time now, and on the hardest part of the race also. So it's a great achievement by himself. It will make all of the French journalists start talking again and putting hope in him again for the future tours to come. But unfortunately, Vironk cannot time trial, and he will lose every time to a guy like Mikel Indurain. He will lose 4 minutes or 3 or 4 minutes on a 65-kilometre time trial, flat time trial. It'll be very interesting to see, though, what he does in the time trial to Avoriaz next week.
Well, they went away, the group chasing after Torres, round about the 50-kilometre mark, according to my notes here. And so as he comes up now towards the finish at 204 kilometres, he's been out 150 kilometres, he's been with leading riders. But he took off on the Tourmalet to go into the lead now. He's done something like about 40 kilometres on his own, nearly 25 miles. A brilliant performance by Richard Vironk. And when he went off first of all and jumped around a bit, we thought that perhaps he was just doing his usual tactics. But no, he was determined, he's got stuck in, and now only Pantani is a man could catch him, but Pantani is about 5 minutes further down the road, and here Indurain has begun to split the field. He's only got Pulnikov with him and Leblanc for company. The watches will go as soon as the man goes across the line, Vironk, to see what the gap is back, but undoubtedly there's been some damage done in the overall classification today, and the worst man, the worst sufferer is undoubtedly going to be Tony Rominger.
As you see, Pantani now riding away for a second place. He's going to try and guarantee himself a second place, but there's still 3 kilometres to go. He'll definitely not be able to come back on Vierhank, of course, but if he can hold the rest of the field off, he will be second place.
Vierhank then this morning 15 minutes 38 seconds down on Indurain on general classification. Pantani was 15 minutes and 3 seconds, so in fact there are 35 seconds separating Pantani from Vierhank on overall classification, with Marco Pantani the best, as Vierhank heads up the hill towards the finish at Lutz Ardiden. Just 1 kilometre to go for Richard Vierhank, who's ridden his heart out, something like 25 miles, 40 kilometres. He's been on his own since he took off on the Tourmalet. He judged it to perfection. He left the men he'd been with before right toiling in his wake. He left Bolts, Pelliccioli, Cabino, Dufo, and then up from that group from behind came Pantani, who's passed all of those riders, and only Pantani now in second place. Cannot close the gap, which last we had was something like 5 minutes. And Miguel Indurain is even further back down the slopes, probably something like about 7, 8 or maybe even 9 minutes in arrears. And just look at this mass crowd here. Stephen, you've been up this climb before. What's it like to be riding up amongst this great big wodge of people?
No, it's an incredible feeling. You get an incredible feeling going up through the group like this, and knowing that like himself is sure of him being French, going through a French crowd, I'm sure it's a great feeling for himself. So I wouldn't mind being in his place again, Dave. He's giving me goose pimples just watching him going through it, so I wouldn't mind being in his place.
You're not going to get your bike out and start training again, are you, Stephen?
No, my day is over. I had my day. Like, Vierhank will win the stage maybe, but he won't win the Tour, so I suppose I cannot begrudge him this eventual stage win.
Well, my thanks throughout the whole of the 4 hours we've been on air to Stephen Roche, my co-commentator, who's suffered on these mountains before, and he knows what it's like to come up this particular one here at Lutz Ardiden, which we've only used in the past 5 times. Delgado won in 85, Lauritsen won in 87, Cabino in 88, 1990 it was Indurain that came over the top, and here we have Vierhank coming up to be the first man over the line, where the race actually stops here. We don't go down the other side, and this is the finish of the race. This is probably one of the greatest days in the career of Richard Vierhank. He's already taken over in the Tour de France the past, the polka dot jersey of the King of the Mountain, but now he's going to have his name go down on one of the classic days of the Tour de France, when it goes been over these big climbs, the Col de Périssard, the Col d'Aspin, the Col de Tourmalet, and now Lutz Ardiden. The name's going back over the years, and Richard Vierhank goes on to the roll call of honour as he heads down the finishing straight. He must be absolutely elated with this one, and here's Stephen, this moment I'm sure he'll remember for a long time to come, despite of all the things he's ever done.
I'm sure he will, it'll be a moment he will save for the rest of his life. His first major stage win in the Tour de France, and what a stage win, a classic with 4 mountain climbs, finishing on Lutz Ardiden, which is the classic of the Tour de France. So I'm sure, like, Vierhank being a man of, as you say, a cinematic, a showman, as you can see here, I can see him putting on a maximum show from now for the last 400 metres.
He can hardly believe it, though, can you? Look on his face. He knew what he went out to try and do, and now I think the message is getting home. He's doing it.
Yeah, well, like himself and Luc Leblanc are very, very much the same as regards the mentality. They're very childish, but it's like this is like a child coming here to win and something big, you know, like a Christmas maybe. But it's great victory for Richard Vierhank anyway.
Vierhank then coming round that short, sharp corner into the finish, and the crowd erupting. They're standing all up this mountainside, and the cheers are echoing off the walls as he hits the line in first place. An average speed of 33.294 kilometres per hour for the ride today. So that is still some 20 miles an hour average speed, and they've been over these thumping great mountains. They're unbelievable, the climbs here, and yet they've averaged some 20 odd miles an hour. And this is Pantani, who just misclimbed his attack to get up to Vierhank. He had to sweep up the rest of the riders that had been away with Vierhank. He's done just that. He's heading in for a second place. Pantani got a third place in Hautacam just a couple of days ago. This man again is one of those climbing revelations. We've got the watch running at the moment then, because you'll see down the bottom left hand side of your screens that Pantani 15 minutes 3 seconds down on Indurain this morning, Vierhank 15:38. They're both going to take a thumping great lump of time out, and we could well find both of them moving up into the top 10 overall on general classification. Some recompense then, I think, for Carrera, Stephen, that Pantani has his second place after disappointment of Claudio Chiappucci being unwell and unable to start.
It is a great achievement for the Carrera Tassoni team, but I'm sure Pantani would have preferred to have had Chiappucci at his side, because you can do a lot more when you're two teammates as when you're alone. But we've followed Pantani now right through the stage, and unfortunately he hasn't had the little bit of glitter that he showed us in the Tour of Italy. He had great form in the Tour of Italy, where he was very sparkling, he was very, very nice to watch, whereas you can see on the Tour at the moment, he's not having, he hasn't got the little bit of sparkle that he had in the Tour of Italy. But still in all, if he can come out and finish second on the stage, to Virenque, who's been a fantastic stage right from start to finish, it'll be a great achievement for himself, because it is his first Tour de France.
This is the man then who in 2 days in the Tour of Italy smashed away all thoughts perhaps it would be an easy ride into the finish for Berzin, who had triumphed in the time trials and ridden himself into first place, because this man leapt up into second place overall, did Pantani, in the Tour, with 2 good days in the mountains. He is one of the world's greatest climbers, an absolute gem of a man is this fellow here, Pantani. 15 minutes 3 seconds down on classification this morning. I think that Virenque and Pantani could find themselves in the top 10. That's going to be some just reward for a hard, hot day in the saddle. They've been racing now for over 6 hours, the sun beating down on these tired bodies. They had a rest day, but still they won't have recuperated so far totally, because we covered until yesterday 1,335 miles of racing at an average speed of just over 25 miles an hour, and still today they're over 20 miles an hour on what has been the toughest day in the Tour so far.
The average speed for the moment is like 33 kilometers an hour, as you can see on the right hand side of your screen. But take into consideration with the 4 climbs you had, you have 100 kilometers, I wouldn't say flat road. On the flat part of the road you still had 3 mountain climbs, 2 third category climbs and 1 fourth category climb, and then you had 50 odd kilometers of flat road then to the first call of the day, which was the call of the Périssourde. So it's been by no means a flat day. It's then having 100 kilometers of nothing but climbing and descending, an average speed of 33 kilometers an hour is a very good average speed.
And the crowd here enthusiastically cheering Pantani on his way up. He's a name that we're now going to be very familiar with as he's burst upon the scene and being one of those superb mountain climbers, perfectly proportioned to be a mountain climber, weighing no more than about 8 stone, wet through, and up he goes now. It's a great disappointment for us in Great Britain that we didn't have a chance of seeing how Boardman would climb, but of course he's a much heavier, chunkier rider. He enlivened the race in the early part by taking that yellow jersey in the prologue time trial and then keeping it for 2 days. And Sean Yates also gave us something to cheer about with him taking the yellow jersey after the stage into Rennes. But we just don't have yet in England a replacement for Miller. I say replacement, he hasn't retired yet. So Robert, if you look in this programme, wish you best of luck in getting your knee back in good order, and hope we may see you next year in the... I see the white head there of Bouvet looking out over the top. He's actually retiring now from the Tour de France after his 28th time in the Tour. 6 times he rode as a professional and 28 times either as a journalist or in the organisation. He's some 64 years of age. There's Albert Bouvet, the white hair there, a very great grand old man, and we say to you, Albert, you've done a tremendous job for the sport, and if the camera goes up, there's Pantani across the line in second place. That's the man in the car behind Albert Bouvet.
Pantani crossed the line, but he looks a little bit disappointed, and I suppose it's not only normal.
At 4:33 it was good because he closed the gap down. At one time it was 6 minutes, 6.5 minutes, and then it got to 5 and he closed it down. Indurain putting the pressure on now, and he's got Pournikov behind him, yet another of the career riders. Benesso Rada on the front still, and the Fessina man, Luc Leblanc behind him. Leblanc won the stage into Hodekamp, out sprinting Indurain. He's letting him do all the work right now. Indurain overall yellow jersey, and behind these 2 riders trying to pivot into the post for what might be third spot, because they're pulling in Cabino now.
Yeah, then there'll only be Pellicoli in front then to catch for the 3rd place. But the problem here where you see the crowds is Indurain is keeping the tempo up so that nobody can get past, because there's very little room to get past, first of all. So Indurain knows if he keeps a good tempo on the front, nobody can attack him. So that's basically what I try to do. No, Pellicoli is here, yep. So they won't catch him. So they'll be going for the 4th place now.
Pellicoli, another fine ride by this Polti man. He'd been in that breakaway group that set off in hot pursuit of Torres after about 50 kilometres had been covered. He survived to finish in 3rd spot. He couldn't hold Virenque when he attacked. He couldn't hold Pantani when he came through, but he has a 3rd place at 5 minutes and 51 seconds back on today's victor.
Luc Leblanc now, they're sitting back nice and easy. I'm sure he's going to have a go, I'm sure. And when the road widens up, when they get to the last kilometres, so the road starts widening, and I'd say LeBlanc will try and have a go. Because the other day, if you remember, LeBlanc won the stage and Virenque was 4th or 5th, I think it was. So the other day LeBlanc won the stage and Virenque was 4th or 5th. Today Virenque has won the stage, so I'm sure LeBlanc wouldn't mind finishing 4th himself. And I'm sure he'll do everything possible to finish 4th.
And that will help the team Festina, who've still got Pascal Lina not far down the slope there. But there again, Carrera doing quite well. They've got 2 riders in there as well. But it depends what the 3rd man will be. Yeah. And that certainly I saw one of the your riders further back down there, Stephen. So it looks to me like
here's Rodriguez there. So
oh, he survived.
He survived. He'd be 4th, yeah, for 4th place.
And the Clummins are going quite mad up above us here now. He did survive. We lost him in the crowd. I thought he'd been swept up, but he's hung on for grim death then. Little Rodriguez finished 5th in the Tour of Italy this year. Very useful climber indeed. Crosses the line just 7 minutes down. So what's the gap going to be back to Indurain? Remember this morning, the gap 15 minutes and 38 seconds back to Virenque. Virenque then looks like it's going to be somewhere about 8 minutes. So Virenque could be up to within 7 minutes of Indurain, which will probably put him up into about 4th, even 3rd or 4th place. Certainly probably 3rd or 4th. The whole thing's turned upside down.
Rominger could be out of the first 3 now with his problems.
And De Las Cuevas is also struggling too. He was 5:36 down this morning. So there could be a tremendous change here, that not only will Virenque get up into the top 3 or 4 places, Luc Leblanc could also do well. Luc Leblanc this morning 8:35 down on Indurain. We can see quite a number of changes here as they go across the line. 7:41 back to the yellow jersey. Absolutely amazing then, ride by Virenque today. The mass of officials closing round Indurain as still the riders climbing up this hill. This is Cabino coming in now. We had that finish with Indurain coming in together with Leblanc of the Festina team, together with Pulnikov from the Carrera team. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 riders in so far, and this is an action replay, a slow motion of the young man Richard Virenque, who convincingly won the stage today after a lone break of some 20 miles up the Tourmalet, down the other side, then up this final climb to Lutz Ardiden. No wonder he looks elated.
I think we all are much the same when we win stages like this stage in the Tour de France. But Virenque, of course, it's not every day he gets the opportunity of winning a stage, especially a mountain stage. So he's every reason to be elated by his victory. There's going to be some big gaps between the groups now.
Cumming might be in with a shout for the team, because they've already got Cabino in here, and the 2 more riders coming up now, aren't they? Because we've seen like 2 Festinas finish, we've seen a couple of the Carrera team finish so far, but now we've got 3 of the Calmis coming, because one's already got in with Cabino, 2 more coming in here now at the moment, so it looks like they might be in for a shout for a team award today.
But you must remember that Virenque with Festina has finished 5 minutes ahead of them, so with the accumulation of times, maybe I think Festina should be...
You think he'll be okay?
Well, depends on where the 3rd man...
doesn't it? Because he was the one that they were looking for.
Depends on where the 3rd man arrives in.
Yeah. And there they go over the line. 9:42 down, and these, by the way, these are the specialist climbers we're looking at now. Imagine the state some of the big men are, the Ludwigs of this world, Abdul Jafarov, who was with that main group back on what they call the bus, and Amandine Praver, he's taken a bit of a pasting today.
He has, yeah, here's our 3rd Festina man, Pascal Hervé.
That's it, that could be it. Oh, Hervé's there, that's good.
Yeah.
That's a good ride. They get the team, I mean, that man who only turned pro this year, that's a tremendous performance for him.
It will be, because everybody was afraid, or nobody knew what he was going to do in this Tour de France, where he's been very active on the flat, and he's been more active on the flat because he's afraid that the mountains might get wiped out, where he's actually put in a very good performance here today in the mountains.
And this man also put up a good performance, Udo Boltz. He's not your natural-born mountain climber. He had to haul himself up these big climbs, and now he's coming into the finish. A very good ride by the Telecom rider. Certainly was not a man I would have expected to have seen up here in the climbs like this, although he's been thereabouts in stage racing before. He's got enormous stamina, and he's crossed the line 10:44 down.
It's Rominger, no?
No, it's his teammate, isn't it?
No. It is Rominger, yeah, it's Rominger, yeah, Rominger.
I was looking at the way he had his hat, because Rominger puts his hat in a particular way, doesn't he? There's the scrum.
Yeah, this is a sad part of cycling. Look at the line now. The journalists now have no consideration at all for the riders. They only want the photographs.
Well, he's just, I worked it out that Indurain came across the line 7:41 and Rominger 11:06. So he's lost himself another, 3 minutes and 20 seconds there on, 3:25 to be more precise, on Indurain. So that may also mean that some of the lower place riders, Armidas Cuevas took a bit of a pasting. Ugrumov we haven't seen finish yet, so that he was in 4th place this morning, but Luc Leblanc might have been able to take advantage of that this morning. He was, let's see, 3 minutes down on Rominger. No, I don't think in fact he will have overtaken Rominger. It's just close the gap on him now.
Yeah.
But the race really is the 2nd place now in this tour, isn't it?
It is, yeah, it's a race in a race, but even for 2nd place now it's been exploded. Everything, like nobody would have thought this morning that all these boys, these climbers would have been in the front today. So the race has exploded apart now. So I just say, now roll on the next mountain stage.
Yep, so do I. And looking at our little list of climbs and things to come, there we are. Confirmation. Have a little look at that one while I dig out the information about the next big climbs to come.
Still Pulnikov and Indurain at 7:42 down on Virenque. And then, yeah, I think the 2nd and 3rd place could be changing today.
A mass of humanity at the top of the Lutz Ardiden. This great ski resort has seen a great day's bicycle racing today, and the stage tomorrow runs a bit downhill from Bagnères de Bigorre to Albi. That's a fairly flat stage, so providing the sprinters get in due course, they'll be looking forward to that tomorrow. And then Castres-Montpellier, we do have a bit of a climb earlier on, up from Castres, and then we climb another. We have a couple of seconds, sorry, it's 1 second and 2/3 early on, then it goes flat again. We don't really hit the big climbs. We hit the Haute category Mont Ventoux on the stage on Monday, the 18th of July. We go to Mont Ventoux, but there again over the Mont Ventoux, a long run down into Carpenter, and that's the only big climb of that day. I think we've got to wait until we get up to the Alpe d'Huez before we see something happening like we've seen today. But still in the mountains, Virenque ran out the victor. The situation on general classification then, unless we get some surprise breakaways, I'm not saying it's all over by the shouting, but it's going to be a big showdown, I think, on the Alpe d'Huez by the looks of the profiles yet to come, because we're in the Pyrenees. We went up the climb of the Haute de Cum 2 days ago for the rest day, and this big one today with the 4 big climbs. It flattens out a bit tomorrow, but still, you never know in the Tour de France. Little groups get away, but this man, Virenque, certainly prefers the big and tough climbs. The next big tough climb, the Haute category one, will be on Monday when Eurosport will bring you the results. Here we are, the provisional general classification, and he's gone into 3rd spot. Virenque then leapt up above Dallas Cuevas.
6 seconds only, 6 seconds.
Yep, 5th for Leblanc. That just shows this young man has got not only the trophy Henri Lagrange for today, the special Prix award for that. I'm sure he might have got the O'Connor special Prix award for today as well, but he's also got himself a 3rd spot. That is a brilliant ride by the young Frenchman, but only just by a few slender 6 seconds from Armidas Cuevas. Luc Leblanc is 5th overall. This is the sprint for what I might call the minor placings, but also trying to survive a little bit of time, or pull back a bit of time for Indurain, but Pulnikov got it on the line, but nevertheless Indurain got his own back on Leblanc, who beat him in the sprint finish, or at least Leblanc just got away from him on the run into Haute de Cum, that climb. Well, we've had cracking days racing today, and the man now has recovered. The crowd here applauding a valiant effort that, as far as Leblanc is concerned, has not only got him the stage victory at Lutz Ardiden, it's taken him up into 3rd place overall.
Fantastic performance by the Festina team in general, because even apart from today's stage, they are Virenque now is 3rd in general classification. Luc Leblanc was 5th. Coming into the Tour de France, they didn't know whether the team was going to go on next year or not, because they haven't got any results. Whereas what a race to get results in is the race of the Tour de France, with 2 men in the top 5, 2 stage wins. 4th place, 6th place for Leblanc today, and the 4th place of Virenque the other day when Leblanc won the stage. So, and the stages they won were 2 of the best stages in the Tour de France so far, and 2 of the biggest stages. So, the Festina team should have a good future in front of them now.
Well, there we are. just shows an enormous gap. Pantani 4 minutes 34 seconds back. The Vironk, having ridden those last 25 miles or so, the distance he put between himself and the chasers. No wonder he's overjoyed with that one.
Here he has the polka dot jersey given to LeBlanc. Is it Vironk again? Vironk again. Yeah, he has the jersey. Polka dot Mountains jersey. This is a jersey he held 2 or 3 years ago, and 3 years ago now in the Tour de France, and wasn't able to keep it. So maybe this time he might be able to keep it. But the way he's riding, he definitely has the
yes, he's been kind of throw it away, hasn't he, in the past? Yeah.
You can look at his face now, and you can just see, as I was saying earlier on, he's very like a child. It's written all over his face, like he's still like a child that hasn't lived. Like but I suppose it's normal having a win like this in the Tour de France, and the biggest race of all, being so young, and the same day winning a stage, a fabulous stage, and coveting the Grand Prix, the Climbers jersey as well.
Well, Richard Vironk, just a quick look down here for his birthday. The people who like to know these things, that he was born on the 19th of November 1969, so that makes him just inside the 25-year-old barrier, but he's got that youthful face. So many cyclists seem to have a youthful look about them, and I know, looking at Dag Otto Lauritsen, who won a stage here a few years ago, he's 38 years of age. He's still riding in the race, and you wouldn't think he's 38. Most of the riders would, you think he's around about 28, not 38. But the Spanish contingent in the crowd, Lutz Ardiden erupting as Miguel Indurain comes forward to collect yet another yellow jersey to add to his vast stock that he's collected in the years that he's been challenging in the Tour de France for the top honour. He's held that jersey since the time trial, when he just absolutely slaughtered the opposition, and today, although his team helped him quite a bit on the bottom, he still had to give good to Vironk, because he came in some 7 minutes and 41 seconds down on Vironk, who's now leapt up into third spot overall behind this man in the yellow jersey. He's going to have to watch the mountain climbers when we hit some more big climbs. It's not all over yet, but believe you me, it shows that you can attack, you can gain time, but his team are going to really sit on those mountain goats the next time we start going up at anything other than a second or third or fourth category climb.
With all those lions and Mikel has gotten over the last couple of years, you could possibly start up a lion reserve.
I wonder what he does with all of them.
Every stage you get one, you get a big one, and at the end, I still have my big one, and when I won the Tour de France.
What did you do with all yours?
Clarence. But those little lines are going on now, I'd say, for the last, I got one in 85 when I won a stage, so it's almost 10 years now. It's actually 10 years now. Those lines have been given out on every stage, and you get a big one at the end of it all. So Mikel must have some collection of them now at home. As we just get a small, quiet view of the finish here in Luz Ardiden, and a replay of the win of Richard Vironk, who looks very, very happy. It's quite understandable. It means now that the other mountain stages that are coming along now, Alpe d'Huez and Val Thorens, we should see again an awful lot more action.
Well, that says it all. I'm sure he doesn't know now whether to laugh or cry. And when he's found that not only has he won the greatest stage in the race so far this year, collected all the cash as well, but he's moved up into third overall on general classification and has got the Kingdom Mountains jersey. Vironk is the man of the day. For myself, David Duffield, and Stephen Roche. Bye-bye.